Zelda Invades Marvel. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 201, Fighting in the Dark. Third update. Link was dragged into a dark space and time by Malekith. Ether particles rushed over, and Link was knocked far away and fell to the ground. Thunder power was activated. After dispersing the curse power in his body, Link stood up. He looked around, and it was pitch black. He couldn't see his hand in front of his face. Link summoned the dragon scale sword, and a blazing fire ignited on the sword. Link could feel the blazing temperature on the sword, but he couldn't see anything. It was as if this world swallowed up all the light around. Suddenly, the sword was heavy, and something like a snake crawled along the blade. Link's heart tightened, but then he heard a voice like a baby elephant. A warm little dragon body was wrapped around Link's neck like a scarf, and it rubbed Link's cheek with its warm head. The smooth and dense scales were comfortable. Yaya cried. Link touched Yaya. Although in the darkness, Yaya was not very scared. After all, she was not born for too long, and she was far less dependent on light than Link. Link. A heavy male voice came. Link's heart trembled. This man's voice was very unfamiliar. Link had never heard it before, but he knew it. This was Ganon's voice. According to legend, Ganon was a man from the Gerudo tribe. He was transformed into a demon because of his desire for powerful power. He was neither human nor ghost. Link changed to the Master Sword and Hylia Shield and held them in both hands. With the power of the Reality Stone, I can finally communicate with you. You are now confined by me to a temporary space that is about to be destroyed. Except for defeating my puppet, you have no other chance of survival. Link, you are a pitiful person who calls yourself the light. Let's see how long you can endure in this dark world. Link swung a sword from the direction where the voice came from. The sword light shot out, and with a swish, Link did not see the brilliant sword light. Everything was pitch black. Link didn't even know whether he had his eyes open or closed. But what he knew was that he had just missed. Suddenly, there was a slight sound of rapid running. Link dodged quickly, but because there was no light, Link's actions instinctively hesitated. Then he heard a shout, and Link's long ears moved, and his body tensed up. He heard the sound of the ether particle stream rushing towards him. Link instinctively held the shield to block it. Bang! The body took 2 steps back. The shield was knocked, as if it was kicked away by someone. Link was faced with a fierce breath, which came from the demonized Malekith. Malekith kicked the shield in Link's hand away. A fist hit him. Link felt a fist wind coming, and dodged it with a backflip, and staggered a little when he landed. But he aimed at the direction, and slashed with his sword. The sword seemed to be slashing on something similar to the sound of sand, but it was because it hit the ether particles and was offset by the power of the ether particles. In his ears, the voice of Malekith came. In this world, you are just like a blind man. Shit. No. Link was suddenly pushed down by someone. Then Link heard the sound of ether particles condensing in front of his eyes. The crazy Malekith shouted, "This is the dark world I dreamed of. Do you know what I saw? I saw a piece of heaven. But in heaven, there is an ugly little devil. That is you. I finally came to the dark world. I will bury you here." Malekith condensed the ether particles into a cone and stabbed Link's face. Link struggled desperately, but he couldn't see Malekith, while Malekith could see him. Link was at a disadvantage and was a little at a loss. At this time, "Your voice is really loud. I caught you." Tony's voice came from nearby. "Laser. Fire. BIU. A beam of light shot over. Although it was invisible, Link could feel a strong beam of light attacking Malekith on him through the vibration and heat of the air, hitting him hard. Ah! The cone formed by the ether particles drew a bloody mark on Link's face. Link was already satisfied. It was only 2 centimeters away from piercing his eyes. Tony came over clumsily. "Link, are you there? I can't see anything either. Stand up quickly. Don't let me step on you." Link quickly shouted, "I'm here." No. Malekith is rushing over again. Because he had no vision, the attacks Link chose were all sword beams with the widest coverage. But when he felt the footsteps of the rushing person stagnate, He knew that Malekith had easily bypassed him and continued to rush over with footsteps, punching Link away and infusing Link with a huge amount of curse power. Link. Are you okay? I'm here. Tony went over according to the direction provided by Link. But inside Iron Man's suit, Jarvis' voice came, saying, "Sir, I hear footsteps approaching you very quickly." Tony shouted, "Take off." Iron Man immediately flew up into the sky, but he seemed to hit something with a bang, and fell down with a pile of scraps. Tony shouted, "Link, think of a way. We two blind men will soon be tortured to death by this long-eared bastard." Link stood up with gritted teeth. If Tony could see what Link looked like at this moment, he would not urge him. Because Link's body, like Thor who was seriously injured just now, had a ghost-like shadow flowing on the surface of his body. Link's body trembled, and he fought desperately against the curse power in his body. Link reluctantly shouted, "Give up the attack. You concentrate on dodging. I will find a way to contain him." Link endured the pain in his body and rushed towards the direction where Malekith made the sound, but he missed and fell to the ground. Then there was a heavy blow in his abdomen. AHH. Link screamed in pain. Tony was still confused and shouted, "Link, what's wrong with you? Damn it." Tony locked onto the location of the voice and fired a cannon directly in the direction slightly upward. Swish. But an ominous sound was heard. Malekith was using other particles to control the incoming cannonballs and smash them in one go. Tony shouted, "Link, it's okay. At least you helped me attract his attention." While Tony was attracting Malekith's attention, Link opened his hand and waved it, and a burst of cold air gushed out. Yeah, who had been hiding behind Link's hair because of the battle, sneezed. Yeah hates the cold. Link's ice skills were strengthened, and he froze Malekith for a short time, although it only lasted for less than 1 second. But Link was counting on this second to turn the tables. Chapter 202 Thor, Why Can't God Believe in God? Fourth update. The two princesses seemed a little flustered, because Link was not around. Thor looked at the sky, and the scene of the 9 realms connected was hanging high in the sky. Malekith should take this opportunity to use the power of the other particles to drag the whole world into darkness. But he did not show up. Malekith was puppeted by Ganon, and his mind was corrupted by the cursed power. In order to kill Link, he even ignored the creation of the Dark World. Although the crisis of the entire universe was unexpectedly terminated because of this incident, the imagined tragic battle did not break out. Compared with the whole world falling into darkness, this is a very good ending. But the disappearance of Link and Malekith made them deeply uneasy. The story is far from over. The battle continues. Zelda checked the space around her, looking very flustered. Not good. The space around us has returned to normal. But Link and the others. Princess Washang pursed her lips, hugged Zelda gently, and said softly, "We must believe in Link. Link has been fighting alone for a long time, and he will always win." Zelda clasped her hands together and prayed silently, "Goddess Hylia, bless Link." Princess Washang sighed and followed Zelda in praying, "Goddess Hylia." Suddenly, a different voice appeared. "Great Goddess Hylia, for the sake of us all being gods, bless Link." Thor also imitated the two girls and prayed devoutly. The 4 girls, an old man, an intern, and a pepper around him all looked at Thor in shock. Thor scratched his cheek and said, "I'm serious. I'm planning to believe in Goddess Hylia." Darcy opened his mouth wide. "Come on, you are God." "Okay." Thor spread his hands in confusion. "Can't God believe in God? Everyone?" Jane thought for a while. "Indeed, there is no precedent." Zelda smiled bitterly. "Goddess Hylia finally has local believers in this world. Me, Zelda, Link, Mipha, Libba, Zappo, Darkle, a total of 7. Now there is one more." Peppa jumped up. "A total of 9. Me too, me too." Princess Washang said seriously, "I feel your father will be very dissatisfied. Your worries are unnecessary." Thor laughed. Princess Washang said, "Do you have a way to convince your father?" Thor put his hands on his waist. "Just believe it secretly, isn't it?" Heimdall, who was stationed far away in the sky, heard Thor's voice. Heimdall can not only see what is happening on the earth, but also hear what is happening on the earth, and suddenly felt dizzy and his eyelids twitched. Wearing armor, Kuan Kayang ran to find Odin. "Something is wrong. This is crazy." Even gods believe in gods. Odin's family has a bad son. Link was seriously injured and hurriedly froze Malekith. Then he stood up with the pain in his stomach, touched a piece of ice, grabbed Malekith, and used the time stop skill again. The time stop skill can only last for 3 seconds at most. Link shouted, "Tony, come here. I need your help." Tony came clumsily in armor and asked, "What's wrong?" Link covered his abdomen and felt a wet patch in his hands. Link said weakly, "You catch him. I must destroy him as soon as possible." Mipha suddenly flew out and hugged Link. At this time, Mipha did not speak, but just carefully felt the temperature of Link's body. In less than 2 minutes, Link was seriously injured twice. What does this mean? Mipha knew very well that she would not make a worried sound at this time to distract Link. She just silently treated Link. In the darkness that Link could not see, Mipha's body became increasingly dim. Link reached out to Mistidin, tied Malekith's waist, and handed Mistidin to Tony. He shouted, "Tony, you must grab the rope. This is our only chance to win." Tony nodded and then hurriedly said, "Okay." He just heard the sound effect of the hero coming out, which seemed to be Mipha. It seemed that Link was seriously injured again, but Mipha was sensible and knew not to interfere with Link. Tony, as a business tycoon, was a shrewd man and naturally knew this truth. "Help Link. Don't make trouble." Link touched Malekith and came behind him. At this moment, the time stop skill had ended, the golden chain exploded, and the ice on Malekith's body was also rapidly disintegrating. But Link's face was hung with a nervous smirk. Link had a trick that was very powerful and had never been tried in the Marvel world. Link didn't know whether he could perform it successfully, but the situation was critical now. Ganon brought him and Tony into the dark world and blinded Link, greatly reducing Link's combat power. It didn't matter if Link used some tricks. Link entered stealth mode, holding the Master Sword. Snap! The ice exploded. Malekith screamed, and the power of Ganon's curse in his body was about to burst out. Tony felt a little confused, but Link would not give Malekith any chance. Bang! A sword slashed. Back attack. Malekith hadn't finished screaming, and suddenly he fell on his back with a thud. Tony only heard a scream, but he just obeyed Link's order and pulled Mistidin. Malekith rubbed his head and stood up. He was about to turn around. Bang! There was another stun from behind, knocking him to the ground again. As mentioned before, Link is actually the strongest assassin in the world. The damage of his backstab is 8 times that of a normal attack, and it has a stun effect. The tactic he adopted was to backstab Malekith, stun him, wait for him to stand up, backstab him again, and stun him again. Snap! Tony was stunned. "This sound is wrong." Malekith was furious. "Do you think I'm a fool?" He used the other particles to knock Link to the ground. He grabbed Link's neck with one hand and propped him up, saying viciously, "I'll pinch you to death." Malekith squeezed hard, and Link's neck made a sound of bones breaking. Although Link's throat was pinched, he still laughed. "What a pity. Obviously in Hyrule, you can be so shameless. It turns out that you can't." Malekith's face changed, but Link was very calm and immediately shouted, "Tony, pull." Tony, who had been patient, suddenly pulled the rope, pulling Malekith away. Little by little, the real Link waiting behind Malekith was revealed. Go. The clone Link, whose throat was pinched by Malekith, stabbed with a sword, and Link also stabbed with a sword. In the darkness, the two swords caught together. Chapter 203 Explode. World. Swish. The tips of the two swords touched each other precisely in the darkness. Link and his clone simultaneously released a large amount of power. The energy from the same source gathered at the intersection of the two swords, and then gradually became uncontrollable. Link was about to make it uncontrollable. "Tony, leave quickly." Malekith immediately sensed the danger, and the power of the Ganon curse on his body burst out. He sent Link flying. In an instant, the clone Link disappeared, and Link was thrown away and hit against a wall, causing his head to bleed. Malekith yelled, "This is my beautiful world. You can't defeat me in the dark world." Tony's voice sounded near Link. "A beautiful world? It's better for me to die than to stay here for a long time. What the hell is this dark thing? Infrared rays can't detect it." Link struggled to crawl over and shouted, "Tony, hide behind me." From his perspective, Malekith saw Tony and Link lying together like clumsy blind people. It looked pitiful and ridiculous. Just as he was about to go forward to destroy them, he suddenly saw that his own world suddenly began to twist violently. Link put his shield in front of him and put the already frightened Yair on his chest. Mipha was still hugging him on his back, treating him unmoved by the outside world. Link smiled and said, "Indeed, I can't destroy you in this state, but I can destroy this small world." At this moment on Earth, the strange phenomenon of the 9 realms connected was dispersing, and this small dark world forcibly opened up by the power of Ganon and other particles also began to become unstable. The ball of light next to Malekith was rapidly enlarging. Link and Tony couldn't see anything, but Malekith saw it clearly. From his perspective, this was a strange energy ball twisted into more than 70 colors, which became so strange because of being in this dark world. Malekith had long known the danger of this mutated ball of light. When he was scolding Link, he was already running desperately to get away from the ball of light. But he soon discovered that this paradise world in his heart was compressed towards the mutated ball of light at a high speed. The dark world was being affected by the strange energy ball that Link had created. It was shattered and twisted rapidly. The instrument on Tony's iron suit detected something. He asked Link worriedly, "Did you release any monsters?" Link panted, "I don't know. This world is too strange. My attack should have mutated. Why hasn't the light ball exploded yet?" Bang. As soon as he finished speaking, there was a loud bang. A strong wave came from the direction of the light ball. Link held the shield in front and summoned Darkle. Darkle shouted, "Why can't I see anything? Haha, but it's okay, leave it to me." Malekith was instantly exploded by the energy ball and was blown into powder. This unstable space was torn apart. Link closed his eyes and felt a terrible energy wave created by himself, attacking him. Ha. Ha. Link and Darkle shouted at the same time. Link swung out the shield. Link had no distractions at the moment. His physical condition was too poor. If his shield counter failed, he would be blown to ashes like Malekith. Even Yair in his arms and Tony behind him would die together. Holding the shield given to him by Goddess Hylia, Link performed the most comfortable and perfect shield counter so far. The energy wave from the light ball was completely and abruptly bounced back. It hit the starting point. Snap. There was a sound of broken glass. Link and Tony's eyes, which were useless in the darkness, felt a burst of strong light at this moment. Whether it was pure darkness or pure light, people could not see it. Link and Tony were dizzy from the sudden burst of light. The two and a little dragon fainted. In London, the two princesses and Thor waited for a long time, but they never saw Link appear. Darcy sat on the ground listlessly and asked, "Are they dead?" Jane hurriedly covered Darcy's mouth, raised her index finger to her lips, and stared at Darcy. "Don't talk nonsense." Princess Washan and Zelda shook their heads at the same time. "No, we can feel Link's life. It's still thriving." Link felt as if someone had injected something as heavy as mercury into his body. It made him very uncomfortable and painful. He fell into a nightmare. Link couldn't see anything in the dream. It was as if he was still in the dark world, fighting hard with terrible enemies. After a long time, Link felt his face wet and woke up in a trance. He had an advantage, that is, he didn't stay in bed. As long as his consciousness was focused, he would immediately turn over and wake up, no matter how tired he was. This was an ability he developed from fighting alone in the wilderness for a long time. Pain. My whole body hurts. But now, Link probably couldn't be happier without pain. At least he didn't disappear into the disordered nothingness with the broken time and space. Link gritted his teeth and sat up, opening his eyes. He saw Yair, who was already very haggard, with red and swollen eyes, looking at Link. Ah. Yair was startled when he saw Link suddenly turn over. Then he flew over and rubbed Link's cheek with his face. But it seemed that Yair had not eaten for a long time, so the red light on her body was very dim. It seemed that Yair had been guarding Link for a long time. Yair. Link gently hugged Yair and kissed her, then struggled to stand up. He was in a moist underground cave. Link's vision was very blurry. Looking around, there were many ferocious small lizards grinning at him. Yair shouted weakly twice. Link understood what Yair meant. It was she who had not rested when Link was unconscious and drove away the ferocious lizards that tried to dismember Link. When he thought of Yaya not eating or drinking and forcing her tired body, she used her only skill, pretending to be fierce, to protect him as much as she could. Link felt a pang of sadness in his heart. How old is Yaya? How did she survive when Link was unconscious? When Link checked, he could see that Yaya had many wounds on her body, which had already festered. She could only pretend to be fierce, so of course she couldn't resist these vicious lizards that were like miniature dinosaurs. I'm afraid Yaya had fought with them many times. Let me repeat, dragons are not good at fighting. 2 dragons have already fought for Link at the risk of everything. Link couldn't imagine how Yaya and these bastard lizards were biting each other. Under normal circumstances, Yaya would definitely jump over happily and jump up and down when she saw Link wake up. Now she doesn't even have the energy to be happy. Link summoned the Master Sword. His eyes swept over those bastard lizards. Chapter 204 opens the Guardians of the Galaxy plot. Link got really angry, and everyone in the Avengers had to be a little scared. Not to mention the bastard lizards in this weird cave. Link yelled, picked up the Master Sword, and chased the bastard lizards, killing a lot of them, and directly made this strange species extinct in this area. Crack. The sound of burning firewood. Link sat in front of the fire, with the skinned and gutted bastard lizard stuck on his sword. Link sat there with his legs crossed, roasting the bastard lizard. Underestimated. Can this thing be eaten? Fangai rolled his eyes at Link, as if to say, is there anything in the world that you can't eat? Now Fangai was biting Link's other hand and drinking Link's blood. Fangai was very weak now and had to supplement high energy nutrition. Link could use the energy of lightning to feed Fangai, but Fangai was in poor physical condition and the power of thunder was too strong. Link was worried that he would hurt Fangai if he couldn't control it well. He simply channeled his energy into his blood and directly bled Yaya to feed her. After all, Yaya was not a raw and bloodthirsty beast. Less than 2 months after birth, Yaya had an IQ similar to that of a child and was a spiritual creature. Seeing Link feeding her blood, Yaya refused to drink it and got angry with Link. As a result, Link held down Yaya's little head and forced her to suck on her cut wrist. Yaya was so moved that she burst into tears and sucked Link's blood. And now, she was drinking it happily. Her mouth was full of blood, and there was a different kind of horror. Link still felt a sharp pain in his body, which kept attacking his nerves, making him very irritable. If it were an ordinary person, he would have lost his mind under such extreme pain. But for Link, pain is commonplace. Link called Mipha, but Mipha did not come out. Instead, Libba flew out with a proud look on his face, and first smiled with disdain. Link, why are you so embarrassed? You look so gloomy. Link ignored him and asked directly, how is Mipha? I called her, but she didn't come out. Is she okay? Libba flew in front of Link and pointed at him with his wings. Can't we all save some trouble? Mipha was so tired that she fell asleep while treating your injuries. Link was distracted. Libba's tone softened and said, at least for us, you should get less injured. Mipha, don't worry, we will take good care of her. Then he flapped his wings, flew into the sky and circled, shouting, we have your backing. Why are you still worrying and thinking nonsense? Goodbye. He disappeared in an instant. Seeing Libba was so arrogant, Yaya stuck out her tongue in dissatisfaction. Link smiled. The 4 heroes have been protecting Link with all their strength. Link also searched for Tony while carrying out the cruel genocide against the arsehole lizards, but he didn't find Tony. Link didn't know whether Tony was dead or alive, nor did he know where he was. Was he blown to a new world because of the mutant light ball? Transformers? Lord of the Rings? Harry Potter? Or My Little Pony? Of course, in the world of My Little Pony, it is impossible to have such a decadent apocalyptic scene. Link found that he was not in a cave, but in the ruins of a destroyed city. The wind was blowing outside, and the air here was not suitable for human survival. Link could only hope that he was still in the Marvel world. By the way, how far has the plot developed now? Thor 2 should have ended. Next is, seeing that the barbecue lost, Link ate it happily without caring whether it was poisonous or not. The Master Sword has the function of purifying filth, so it can always remain sterile. Of course, even if there are bacteria and parasites, they will be eliminated when they enter Link's stomach. Fang was a little disgusted with Link's food and then concentrated on sucking Link's blood. Although it felt that this was not a good thing to do, Fang had not eaten for several days and could not care so much. Just when Link was hungry and eating his 79th roasted bastard lizard, suddenly, he saw a figure walking in from the ruins. It was not clear from a distance, but he could really see his big red eyes. Frightened, Fang shrank behind Link's hair, screamed, and said to Link, "What scary eyes?" Link was speechless. "Your eyes are also red, right?" But Link quickly put out the fire and hid. Then he looked closely. The red-eyed one who jumped and danced in Star-Lord? Link smiled. It's true that he didn't miss any of them except Captain America. An explosion blew him to the place where the plot of Guardians of the Galaxy began. So, Star-Lord is here to take the Power Stone. When Link thought of the Power Stone, he suddenly felt dizzy and fell into a coma. Yaya hurriedly licked Link to wake him up. Link shook his head and thought to himself, am I sick? Impossible. I have never been sick. Since I was a child. He saw a group of strange looking alien warriors walking into the secret room that Star-Lord had opened. Link also hurried over. Hey, hand over the things. The alien warriors shouted, and several of them controlled Star-Lord with guns. When Star-Lord was about to say some witty words, he suddenly tilted his head and looked behind the blue-eyed alien warrior and said, "Who is the little boy with a different style behind you?" The blue-eyed alien warrior shouted, "Do you think I'm a fool? You use such a clumsy tactic to deceive me. I'm Ronan the Accuser." Star-Lord frowned. "Naked man? It's Ronan. Don't mess around. There is no such homonym in English pop." Link stretched out a finger behind the blue-eyed alien warrior and tapped the blue-eyed alien warrior's back, instantly knocking him down. Link was very dissatisfied. Because of the severe pain and weakness in his body, Link could not use many of his powers, and even his lightning power was weakened a lot. Who? The other alien warriors hurriedly pointed their guns at Link. Seeing Link's face, they were all frightened. Star-Lord said, "Okay, you guys fight first. I'll take my leave." By some of the alien warriors pointed at Link, and the other part pointed their guns at Link and prepared to fire. Link's reaction was faster than them. As soon as he made a move, 3 ice cones stabbed at the 3 people, hitting them in the face. They were instantly stunned. Pinch the middle finger and thumb together. Click. Link snapped his fingers very casually. 3 small spherical lightning slowly floated towards the alien warriors. Star-Lord wondered, "Are you performing a small magic trick?" Zee-la-la. The 3 alien warriors suddenly snapped and flew backwards, breaking through the wall and flying 30 meters away. Star-Lord's mouth twitched. Chapter 205. No matter what, let's beat Star-Lord first. Third update. Star-Lord looked at the enemies around him, and Link quickly cleaned them up. He whistled and said frivolously, "Hey, are you the famous Flash?" Link stepped forward and said, "My name is Link, and I'm from your hometown." Star-Lord's face changed immediately. "Oh, Earthlings. Earthlings now." Star-Lord grabbed his ears and gestured. "All have long ears and a black face?" "Black face?" Link wiped his face and said, "Are you cleaner now?" Star-Lord shook his head. "The black stuff on your face seems to..." "Forget it. Never mind. Please help me find someone. Tony Stark." Star-Lord smiled and stretched out his hand. "Okay, I can help you. But, the reward." Link said, "Can I pay by credit card?" Star-Lord's face became long. "No, little brat, bye." Link rushed over to the money and flicked a small electric spark at Star-Lord. Zzz. Star-Lord sat down on the ground with a big afro, and his face was as black as Link's. Star-Lord shouted, "Ha! Lightning. I hate people like you who have superpowers the most. Without superpowers, you are nothing." He jumped up and down, put on a boxing stance, and raised his chin towards Link. "Come on. If you have the guts, compete with me in boxing. This is a real man's contest. And you, a thin and tender little brat. Do you dare?" "Yeah, gagaga." Lay on Link's shoulder and laughed. Star-Lord shouted, "What are you laughing at, little snake? Dare to mock me? Come on, let your master compete with me in boxing skills." Link said, "Okay, I won't use lightning, nor my other superpowers." Star-Lord's mouth twitched. "You have other superpowers? Ahem. Those are external things. What? It seems that you are going to have a real man's contest with me." Link nodded. Star-Lord pouted his lower lip and blew his hair in front of his forehead. He shouted, "I'll let you know the consequences of messing up my hairstyle. Pa." Star-Lord punched him, and before he realized what was happening, he was hit hard on the nose. He fell on his back. Link said, "Did I win?" "No." Star-Lord wiped the blood from his nose, jumped up, and shouted, again, "Pa. Did I win?" "No." "Come again. Pa." 3 minutes later, Star-Lord was beaten into a pig's head. Ha ha ha. Yeah laughed so happily. Star-Lord stood up shakily and reluctantly admitted defeat. Not bad. Star-Lord patted Link on the shoulder and said like an older brother, "I admire you. I admit that you are a real man." Link used the handkerchief given to him by Zelda to wipe the blood on the knuckles of his fist. "Can you help me?" "Well, I'll just agree to help you with reluctance." Looking at Star-Lord's unwilling look, Link thought about it, and suddenly a light bulb popped up above his head. "I got it." Star-Lord raised his eyebrows and asked, "What reward are you going to give me?" Link took out his cell phone. Because he had been in a fight, the screen of the cell phone was broken, but it could be operated. It couldn't play games, but it was more than enough for listening to music. Link took out a phone card and gave it to Star-Lord. When Star-Lord saw Link took out a tattered iron shell, he immediately lost his mood. "A high-tech product from Earth? Please, in the interstellar age, don't show off Earthlings' antiques." Link smiled and said, "This thing can be used to play songs." Humph. Star-Lord proudly patted the Sony Walkman on his waist and smiled. "I have this." Link said, "How many songs can it store?" Star-Lord proudly raised his head. 13 songs. Link waved the broken phone in his hand and smiled. "This banana phone, with 128 GB of memory, can store at least 15,000 songs." Star-Lord was stunned. With trembling hands, he took Link's phone, stroked the rough surface of the broken screen, and was stunned. "You said 15,000 songs?" Star-Lord made a voice similar to SpongeBob's exclamation. "Are you really going to give me such a precious thing?" Link smiled and nodded. "Can you do your best to help me?" "Of course." Star-Lord put Link's phone into his trouser pocket. "You're so nice. You want me to find Tony Stark, right? Okay. I'm most familiar with this place. What does he look like?" "Oh, no need. I know. Everyone on Earth looks the same." So Link and Ye boarded Star-Lord's spaceship. After Star-Lord got in, he smiled and said, "Link, and your little snake, do whatever you want. I'm very familiar with this planet, and I know exactly which rock was blown off. Find Tony Stark in a minute." Link corrected, "Tony Stark." Star-Lord sat in the driver's seat and waved his hand. "Leave it to me. Hold on tight." Swish. Star-Lord flew away in the spaceship. Suddenly, electric light crackled all over Link's body, and Star-Lord was startled. "What are you going to do?" "Don't blow up the plane." Link said, "No, I'm just cleaning my body." Star-Lord's mouth twitched. "Use electricity? Okay. Go to the bathroom and find a mirror." Link came to the bathroom and saw himself in the mirror and was suddenly stunned. A face full of black hair. Link's appearance changed drastically. His face turned dark blue, his eyes were pure white, his eyebrows were thinner, his eyes were more upturned, and his hair turned silver white. In short, he looked very weird, and even Link was shocked. No wonder he had that reaction after Libel came out. It can't be said that he looked ugly. On the contrary, because of this weird appearance, Link's temperament changed drastically and became very weird. What made him unhappy was that he looked more like a girl after this change. What's going on? Link suddenly pulled open his clothes to check and saw that the black hair had extended to his chest. From waking up to now, Link has been suffering from severe pain. His condition was very bad, and now his appearance became like this. Link was worried that he was poisoned, so he hurriedly checked his body and urged the energy in his body to circulate. So, Link clenched his fist, and he finally found the reason for his strange physical condition. It turned out that the ether particles, after the explosion, parasitized in Link's body. Link tried to mobilize the ether particles. Tiny black and red particles emerged from the fingertips and spiraled into the air. Fang sniffed the ether particles with curiosity, then shrank back behind Link's neck in fear. Fang suddenly screamed. Link immediately took out the Master Sword, turned around abruptly and shouted, "Fang, what's wrong?" Link was stunned and saw a red-skinned woman with her hands raised, looking at him fearfully. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 206. What happened between you and Natasha? Fourth update. Star-Lord heard the commotion and rushed over. He saw Link pointing his sword at his girlfriend. Although Star-Lord had forgotten the name of this red-skinned girl, but how could he save face when being pointed at like this? So he shouted, "Link, what are you doing?" Link remembered that there was indeed such a red-skinned woman in the movie, so he put away his sword and apologized. "Sorry, I was a little nervous just now." Star-Lord was still angry. "This is my spaceship. You are not allowed to use weapons on my spaceship in the future. Do you hear me?" And the red-skinned woman, after the initial shock, looked at Link's handsome face and was a little absent-minded. She complained to Star-Lord, "Peter, what are you doing? She didn't do anything to me. Why are you being so mean to her? Such a cute girl." "Huh, it's my fault." Star-Lord opened his eyes wide and saw that the red-skinned woman was attracted by Link's appearance, and his face turned green. "Link is not a girl, he is a man." Link greeted her softly, "Hi, man." The red-skinned woman was immediately surprised. Wait. Star-Lord immediately stood in front of Link, with his hands on his hips, looking at the red-skinned woman. "Why are you so happy? What do you want to do? What's your name?" The red-skinned woman's face twitched immediately. Link thought about the plot and subconsciously said, "Brit." The red-skinned woman pushed away the stiff-faced Star-Lord and shook Link's hand in surprise, with a surprised smile on her face. "Do you know my name?" Star-Lord glared at Link. Link said, "I guessed it." He quickly let go of Brit's hand. Asked Star-Lord, "Is there any news about Tony?" Star-Lord put his hands on his hips, still looking. "Can you be patient?" Link looked at Star-Lord seriously. "To be honest, I really don't have any. This planet is not suitable for human survival. Tony is my best friend in this world, and I don't want him to die on this abandoned planet." Star-Lord patted his chest. "You have to believe me. Uninformed Earthlings, I, Peter Quill, am not an ordinary person." Link took a deep breath. Star-Lord naturally would not relax after receiving such a precious gift from Link. He flew around the planet at full speed to search for Tony. After playing with Fang for a while, Link came to the cockpit again and asked, "Have you found Tony?" Star-Lord shook his head. "No." Link sighed. Star-Lord was worried that Link would get angry and want to get his phone back, so he quickly changed the subject and started chatting. "There are a lot of strange things on this planet. When I flew over, I saw a red and gold robot crawling on the ground. It was so strange." Link took a breath. Fang also playfully imitated Link and took a breath. Star-Lord frowned. "What's the reaction of your masters and pets?" Link shouted, "Turn back. That red and gold robot is Tony Stark." "Ah, Star-Lord, but he's a robot." Link knocked on Star-Lord's head. "He's hiding in the armor." Star-Lord hugged his head. Okay, I'm going back." The spaceship shook violently, and Star-Lord turned around and went back to find Tony. "I just heard from Star-Lord that Tony was crawling on the ground and was about to give up. I'm afraid Link will give up at any time." Tony crawled on the ground. Because he was protected by Link during the explosion, he suffered the least damage. Tony has been wandering on this dead planet for 7 days. He is also a sentimental and sensitive man. He has thought about death, Pepper, Link, Zelda, and Rogers more than once. Tony has saved many last words in his helmet. One copy was not enough, so he wrote one copy to each person. Even if there was no one around, Jarvis could not speak, and the world could not stop Tony's chatterbox nature. Tony wrote one message to Hawkeye, one message to Natasha, 2 to Rogers, 2 to Rhodey, 2 to Banner, 3 to Link, 1 to Princess Washang, and 3 to Zelda. The ones who wrote the most were Pepper and Pepper Potts, both with 6 messages. It was not until he was about to die that Tony realized who was the most important person in his heart. Tony smiled bitterly and said, "Jarvis, I don't know if your storage space is enough. Although I'm thirsty now, I still can't stop talking. My biggest wish now is to see a living person, even if it is a bad alien. Then give me a cup of Coke and a hamburger, and I will die without regrets. That damn spaceship. I guess the universal distress gesture on Earth doesn't work for aliens, so I missed my only chance to survive on this planet. What is that? What did I see? That spaceship. Did it actually fly back? Am I going to be saved? Tony knelt and looked, only to see a person jumping down from the spaceship, running over quickly, and shouting, "Tony! Link!" Tony was so moved that he didn't know what to say. He saw Link running over desperately in the wind and sand. I feel so dizzy and happy. When Tony was about to faint from exhaustion, he suddenly saw Link's appearance at this time, and was immediately sobered up. Did I have a nightmare? I had a hallucination before I died. Why did Link become like this? Tony couldn't tell whether it was an illusion caused by his despair or something else. Great. Link ran over and pulled Tony up. Tony, wearing armor, hugged Link and said in a dry voice, "Link, how did you become like this?" Link smiled and said, "Let's talk about it later. I'll carry you to the spaceship first." HMM. Link hugged Link horizontally in a princess hug. Tony was embarrassed. This posture will make me lose face. Link carried Tony to the spaceship. Star-Lord's face twitched. I actually fought with a boy with this much strength. What on earth was I thinking? Tony entered the spaceship and saw Star-Lord. He was surprised. So all the commanding lives in the universe look the same? Star-Lord said, "My mom and dad are both from Earth." Tony removed his mask, revealing a pale and sunken face. Brett helped Tony bring food and water. Tony blinked and looked at Brett's red skin. "Oh, I finally feel like I'm in the interstellar space." Star-Lord was a little dissatisfied. "Why is it a man? Why not the beautiful red-haired girl in your phone?" Tony looked at Link in surprise. "Why do you have a photo of Natasha in your phone?" Then he narrowed his eyes. "Is there any story between you and Natasha?" "Don't worry, I won't tell the two princesses. After all, my relationship with you is better." Link spread his hands. "Natasha took a few selfies with me on her phone. Don't think too much." Chapter 207. Young Do wants to hit someone. Tony had a strong ability to recover. After eating something, he soon felt better. Looking at the spaceship carefully, Tony said, "Well, how should I put it? This spaceship is great and very valuable for reference." Star-Lord smiled and said, "If you want, I'll sell it to you for 4 billion. Then he frowned and looked at Link eating a sandwich. "Have you not eaten for 3 years? The sandwich you ate is already twice your weight." Tony turned around and smiled. 4 billion. Very cheap. Star-Lord immediately became much more enthusiastic. "Oh, you are a straightforward customer. Now you not only get the best spaceship in the whole galaxy, but also the friendship of my Lord Star-Lord. It's a good deal. Do you have cash?" Tony said, "How about a credit card?" Star-Lord's face fell. "No. Human currency is just waste paper here." Tony sighed. "It feels so bad to be penniless." Link coughed. It was not easy to make Tony sigh like this. Star-Lord looked at the Iron Man suit that Tony had just put on the side of the cockpit and said tentatively, "If you are willing to give me your broken thing, I can give you a small spaceship." Tony crossed his hands. "Don't even think about it. The essence of human wisdom is in this suit. I won't exchange my suit. You almost suffocated to death in the essence of mankind." Tony pouted. "That's because there is no energy. Link, lend me some electricity." Link tapped Iron Man with his finger, and a string of electricity was put in and released into the Iron Man suit. Iron Man's suit was instantly activated, but because it was far away from the Earth, it could not contact Jarvis's powerful data processing terminal. So it was many times more difficult to control Iron Man. Tony praised, "It's a good decision to name my arc reactor after you." Tony then asked Star-Lord, "How long will it take to send us back to Earth?" Star-Lord shook his head. "That depends on the type of spacecraft. For this family special edition, don't think too much. The energy can't last to Earth. I'll send you to Zelda, you figure it out. I still have my business to run." Tony shrugged. "Whatever you want." "Link, how are you?" Link said, "Not bad." Tony removed Iron Man's arm, put it on Link's wrist, and wrapped it. The test results were soon displayed. Tony's face changed, and he looked at Link. I knew you were pretending to be relaxed. The pain in your body is already 30 times the limit of human endurance. Tony was distressed to see Link's calmness, but he didn't know how to help Link, so he just suggested slightly. In fact, shouting and crying will both release relaxation. You don't need to be tense. I won't laugh at you. Link touched Yaya, who was lying in his arms, and said, "It's okay. Pain is nothing to me." Tony said seriously, "It's useless for you to be brave. The other particles will completely devour your body." Link shook his head and smiled. "That's Jane, and I won't. The reason why I hurt so much is that my own strength is competing with the other particles. No one can do anything to anyone, and we are evenly matched. They treat my body as a battlefield, so I feel so much pain." Tony said a little worriedly, "It's a pity that Malekith is dead. If he is not dead, you can use his power to help you take out the other particles." Actually, Link paused and told Tony his guess. Malekith should not be dead. Link could feel that the other particles in his body were far from being that powerful. It was estimated that only half of them were parasitic in his body. So where did the other half go? Moreover, Link defeated Malekith and successfully escaped from the dark world created by Ganon's power and the power of the Reality Stone. But the gift of Goddess Hylia has not yet arrived. In other words, the battle is not over. Malekith must still be alive, and he has the other half of the other particles hidden in his body. He will definitely come again. Link was suppressed so badly by Malekith that he was also very angry. He needs help to get back at him. Star-Lord listened to Link and Tony talking about some strange topics. When he heard about the other particles, Star-Lord instinctively thought of some associations of treasures and valuable things and wanted to ask more questions. But suddenly, Brett shouted in the lounge, "Peter, someone is contacting you." Star-Lord walked over and shouted, "Who is it?" Brett's voice came again, "It's a man named Yondu. I'll connect you." "Oh." Star-Lord hurried over. "No." Tony and Link also went over to check. Star-Lord was arguing with a blue-skinned middle-aged man with an iron device installed on his head. Regarding the spirit ball, Star-Lord suddenly clicked and hung up the video call. Tony said, "The blue-skinned alien looks very difficult to deal with." Star-Lord made up a rumor about his adoptive father without any guilt. "Believe me, this man named Yondu has eaten more female humans than the number of girlfriends you have dated multiplied by 10. Tony whistled symbolically. "So, this Yondu has eaten 30 million female humans? How terrible." Star-Lord sneered, "Your bragging is too fake." Tony patted Star-Lord on the shoulder and smiled. "Young man, you really should know who is the most famous playboy on Earth. Don't underestimate me if you underestimate anyone." Star-Lord's face changed and looked at Link. "Is what he said true?" Link nodded. "Oh damn." Star-Lord cursed jealously. "I can't stand people like you the most. Toji, stay away from that Brilla. She is my woman. My name is Brit." Brit was very angry. "I hope you call my name right before you declare me as your woman in front of others." Then she left angrily. Tony blew a gloating whistle and winked at Star-Lord. Star-Lord said angrily, "Enough. Stop whistling in front of me." Yondu likes to whistle and poke people everywhere with his dog-like arrows. Link suddenly became happy. "I actually forgot that I can use that trick." If we talk about who has the strongest superpowers in the Marvel movie series, there is no consensus. But if we talk about who has the most interesting skills, I'm afraid many people will choose Yondu's arrow control, and Link is the same. Link summoned a metal arrow, held it in his hand, and pretended to whistle. Activating the magnetic grabber, the arrow flew up and revolved around Link, and Fang chased the arrow curiously. Star-Lord couldn't believe it. "Oh my god." Chapter 208 Tony flirts with Thanos' daughter. Star-Lord remembered the fear of being dominated by Yondu. He immediately shouted, "Stop, stop, stop." Tony laughed and said, "Link, you have a new skill." "Link, it's actually useless. The enemies I usually face are very strong." Star-Lord waved his hand. "I will send you to Zelda, and then I will leave. I have things to do." Link did not stop Star-Lord from buying and selling spirit balls, because it must give the Guardians of the Galaxy an opportunity to form. Link likes this team very much. After Star-Lord left, Tony said to Link, "Zelda and the others will be shocked to see you like this." Link looked in the mirror, looked at his weird face, and said, I was shocked by myself. Tony said, who has the upper hand in the battle between you and the other particles in your body? Link said, the other particles. I feel it is slowly changing my body. Yaya touched Link's cheek with her little head and licked his face gently with her tongue. Even in the deeper layers of the Milky Way, in a strange area of the universe, in a small spaceship, moving forward alone, Yaya was not afraid at all. To her little heart, the world was small and Link was big. As long as she was with Link, there was nothing to be sad about. Link knew that the two princesses must be worried about him and missed him very much in his heart. But he had been running around on adventures for many years and was used to the time of being together less and more apart, so he didn't show it on the outside. The spaceship landed on Zelda and several people got off the spaceship. Tony came down and Link helped Tony hold Iron Man, lifted it into the air with a magnetic grabber. Star-Lord raised his eyebrows, smiled and waved to Link. Tony, goodbye. Brit said to Link affectionately, little Link, goodbye. She wanted to take advantage of Star-Lord's inattention to kiss Link, but Yaya suddenly grinned and pretended to bite, so she hurriedly dodged. Tony wore tinted glasses and looked at the busy avenue with his hands on his waist. Today, the sky in Zelda is clear, and the warm sunshine is pouring down. Tony looked at the sun in the sky. This star in the sky is much larger than the one on Earth, but it is not very dazzling. Tony can look directly at the star under his sunglasses. Tony smiled and said, let's go, Link, let's go and find out if there is a spaceship with a speed of 20 light years per hour for sale. You see, some of the people here are no different from the people on Earth. From now on, I will firmly believe in the idea that the people on Earth are outsiders. What African human grandmother Lucy is, it's all a lie. Compared to other people, the blue and white reactor on Tony's chest is even more weird. Link and Tony walked on the road. Although Xander's technology for interplanetary navigation is far superior to that of Earth. But in terms of energy, it is still not as good as the epoch-making Link element on Tony's chest. Tony saw Link's eyes on a green-skinned woman, so he smiled and said, are you interested in her? He walked up to her and greeted her in English. Hi, green-skinned beauty. Can you understand me? The green-skinned girl said, of course, although the pronunciation is a bit strange. You are indeed speaking the universal language of the universe. Tony thought to himself, it seems that English is actually a foreign language. Tony smiled and said, excuse me, miss, where can I buy an interstellar spaceship? The green-skinned girl said, a lot. Tony talked to the green-skinned girl with ease. Link stood silently in the distance. The green-skinned girl was naturally Gamora. In the comic world, she seemed to have a past with Tony. At this moment, Link suddenly felt a strong heart tremor, his body swayed, and he almost fell to the ground. He forgot to pay attention to Iron Man for a moment, and the magnetic grabber suddenly failed, and fell to the ground. With a click, Tony looked back, and saw Link staggering. She rushed over to support Link, and then she felt that Link's body was shaking violently and had a high temperature, with a surface temperature of at least 40 degrees. Gamora also came over to check. What's wrong with your brother? Tony forced a smile. Thank you. Most people think I'm Link's dad. My dad, bah. Link is feeling a little unwell. Then he whispered, is there something wrong with the other particles? Tony immediately judged that there was something wrong with the other particles. Link has always been in good health and eats everything with relish. Even the burnt dinner he made can be digested into sword beams to fight monsters without changing his face. This conversion rate is amazing. On the first day, he jumped off the building and had a bloody head, but on the second day, he was alive and kicking. Tony has never seen a healthier person than Link. How can he be in such a state as today? Link whispered, that's right. Even though Tony had whispered cautiously, he underestimated Gamora. Gamora is a killer trained by Thanos. Her body has been transformed, and her hearing is very strong. Her ears immediately caught the word other particles. Her face changed all of a sudden. Gamora looked at Link with an unpredictable expression. Her godfather Thanos has been collecting infinite gems and plotting a great, stupid, and terrible plan. Link was in a trance, shook his head and stood up. Tony's face changed, and he saw that Link's eyes, which were originally pure white, were now even whiter, and it was impossible to distinguish the whites of his eyes from his pupils. The aura on his body became more and more weird. Link's body was much stronger than Jane's, so it was very difficult for the other particles to hurt Link. But the blessing of the goddess that Link possessed seemed to be born with this weird power conflict. The two fought and played in Link's body and constantly changed Link's physique. After enduring the first wave of the strongest discomfort, Link stabilized his mind and stood firm again. Although his head was still uncomfortable and dizzy, Link's super high endurance was enough for him to suppress the discomfort and return to his normal posture. Link said softly, "He may be not far from here." Gamora suddenly asked tentatively, "Link, how are you?" Link replied subconsciously, "It's okay, Gamora." Gamora's face changed immediately, and she quickly jumped away, angrily saying, "How do you know my name?" Link said, "The daughter of a bully from the planet Titan. Of course I know her." Gamora glanced at Tony and Link vigilantly, and estimated the time, and decided to ignore these two weird people for the time being, and to complete the mission first. With Link feeling so uncomfortable, Tony no longer had the interest to go shopping and hook up with alien beauties. He was not good at taking care of others, so he could only say stiffly, "How are you? What do you need?" Link smiled, "I'm a little hungry. Let's go eat something." Tony. Chapter 292. Tons of food mysteriously disappeared. Third update. Just as Link was happily eating his 98th Zelda specialty sandwich, Tony was bored watching the commotion in the square in the distance. Tony sneered, "What is that green-skinned girl doing? She's fighting a tree and a raccoon." Then he raised his eyebrows. "Star-Lord is fighting with them too? What's going on?" Link was concentrating on eating his sandwich. The customers around him looked at him in awe. The two fat gray-skinned girls were infatuated with him. Although Link had a high tolerance for pain, he could easily have someone cut off his arm while playing chess. However, he still felt irritated by the pain. When Link felt irritated, he liked to overeat to relieve his anxiety. "It's okay, don't worry about them." Link's mouth was full, and he didn't know how to speak so clearly. Tony shrugged, "Well, I think they were having a good time fighting." Fang was a little bored above Link's head, so he flew and spun very fast, as if there was a red halo above Link's head. Tony came over quietly and said, "Link, our Earthling credit cards can't be used here. What should we do?" Link pointed at the Iron Man on the chair next to Tony with a corner of the sandwich and said, "Use him to pay." Tony slammed the table and said, "Absolutely not." The restaurant suddenly became quiet. Everyone was looking at Tony, and a sturdy man with insect mouthparts on his face at the table next to Tony was suddenly frightened by Tony and started to cry. His voice was particularly tender. Tony was shocked. This muscular man comparable to Dwayne Johnson was actually an alien girl. Tony apologized stiffly. Then he whispered to Link, "Then give me a slogan later, and we will run away in 1, 2, 3. You must not leave me behind." Link smiled and said, "No need." Link took out a stack of Zelda cash and said, "I've prepared the money." Tony winked at Link. "Who did you steal from? I didn't expect that you, a boy with thick eyebrows and big eyes, would do bad things." No matter how you look at Link, he looks like a good kid. Stealing money is something that is very strange for Link. In fact, it is just Tony's illusion. Link is an expert at rummaging through boxes and cabinets in Hyrule. He has opened every stone on the continent, smashed every ore on the continent, and stolen every pot lid from every village on the continent. Link smiled and said, "I took it from Star-Lord, although it is my reward for rescuing him." "Oh." Tony said, "Does Star-Lord owe you a favor? You seem to be a savior everywhere, making others owe you a favor." Link ate the last sandwich and looked at Star-Lord and the others, who had been captured by the security team of Zelda. "This favor is for the future. We will rescue them later." Tony suddenly became excited and said with interest, "Are you going to sneak into the prison to rescue them? Do you need to wear women's clothes this time?" Link's face suddenly became long. Yeah. Burn him." Yeah nodded fiercely, opened his mouth, and blew a mouthful of fire at Tony's face. Tony lowered his head hastily, but he immediately realized that this was a bad decision. The flames burned to the back of his head, leaving a gap. So Tony's hairline, which was pushed back by Fang Yap, was once again left with a bald head. Tony held his chin helplessly and said, "Okay, Link, I was wrong. Can you lend me some money? I want to buy a wig." Seeing Tony's listlessness, Link felt that he might have gone too far. So he said, okay. Half an hour later, Tony came out with a green afro. Tony was so angry that he had nothing to say. What a crappy shop. Link suppressed his smile. After all, it's a wig shop on an alien planet. The aesthetics are all like this. To be honest, your hair is the most normal one among them. Tony lamented. Can you let me go back to Earth? Suddenly, Tony's eyes drifted to Link's flowing silver hair and said, Link, look at your hair is so long. Lend me some? Link shook his head. No. Seeing the time, it was time to save the Guardians of the Galaxy, so the two ran to find a prison. On Earth, there is no prison as serious as Zelda. It is directly a satellite floating in space and orbiting Zelda. Without a proper plan, it is difficult to escape. And outside is the suffocating outer space, which is far more dangerous than the inside of the prison. The money Link borrowed from Star-Lord was spent on food and buying wigs. Tony's green afro wig is super expensive. Even if they didn't spend it, it wouldn't be enough to buy or rent a spaceship. But even if it was a satellite hanging alone, with a large number of prisons and police officers stored inside, of course a lot of food needed to be transported into the satellite prison for supplies every day. So Tony and Link quietly hid in the spaceship that was delivering food to the prison. When they came to the prison, the robots and police officers were carrying the food. When they counted, they were suddenly stunned. Why are there 2 tons of fruit missing? Link, who had already sneaked into the prison, was eating a huge alien fruit in his hand. Tony was surprised. How much did you eat today? Link said, I feel uncomfortable all over. I need to eat to relieve my boredom. Tony smiled and said, I don't know if you are bored or not, but seeing you eat so much makes me happy. Kid, you are still young. When you are over 40, your digestive system will not work. If you eat like this, you will become a fat man. Your ears will be round like a carrot. Link looked up at Tony. I'm older than your father. Tony was not a pushover and immediately hit back. Oh, I remember. You will never grow up. What a poor child. You will only be this tall for your whole life. Tony rubbed Link's head with regret and made a gesture to bite. Link stunned several jailers and calmly came to the center of the prison. There was a chaotic sound from inside. It seemed that Star-Lord, Gamora and others had already started to escape from prison. Tony had already changed into Iron Man and closed his visor. Let me see the armed forces of aliens. Can they be compared with my Iron Man? Link also summoned the ether particles and flew over. The ether particles interfered with Link's power, so Link simply gave up using his own power and drove the ether particles. Only to see dark red fine sand particles began to spread into the prison hall. The ether particles, the reality gem, is the most difficult to use among the infinity gems, and also the most bizarre power. Link has not yet found the correct way to use the ether particles. The same is true for Malekith. But Ganon obviously found it and created a small dark world. This made Link very unhappy. Chapter 210, Power Gem, 4th update. Both Link and Malekith only use the ether particles to inflict physical damage. It stands to reason that the power of the reality stone is not only that, but also has a more powerful quality that can change reality. While Link was fighting with the ether particles in his body, he was also understanding the characteristics of this gem, the liquid gem. But Link could never crack the mystery. The ether particles hit the police officer's head, knocking him unconscious. Then, like a vicious tiger, he attacked another person. But Link just walked forward, holding Fang in his hands, as if playing with Fang was the most important thing, and fighting was just some private work done in his spare time. This posture of walking in the courtyard has the temperament of a big villain. Tony deliberately compared his beloved things with these Zelda people and directly suppressed them with firepower. All the power burst out and cleared all the enemies present at once. But like Link, no one killed them, just knocked them out. At this moment, Star-Lord, Gamora, Rocket, Groot, and Drax had just entered the monitoring cabin. They were under heavy artillery fire. Before they could act, Link and Tony came in like big bosses. One of them was wearing a golden mecha. Beams were shooting out, knocking down a bunch of people, and the other was holding a small fire dragon, with black and red particles like tentacles coming out from behind, attacking everywhere. In less than 10 seconds, all the guards around were wiped out. The Guardians of the Galaxy were stunned. Star-Lord pointed at Link and Tony, and said to Gamora and others, haha, these are my friends. They are here to save me. Rocket looked at Link with his mouth wide open. Link's temperament is now weird and strange, but the aura of a strong man has not changed. Rocket likes strong men, just like he worshipped Thor in another time and space. Rocket also worshipped Link. I'm Groot. Rocket also said, me too. That girl with white hair is so strong. Star-Lord hurriedly said, that guy's name is Link. You can tell him to his face. He hates it most when people mistake him for a girl. It's easy to get beaten. Drax shook his head and said seriously, he's a man. He's very handsome. The most handsome in this prison. Tony shouted, why don't you hurry up and get down? Seeing the Guardians of the Galaxy gathered, Link's bad mood felt a little better and he said, let's leave. Hi. Gamora greeted, I didn't expect to see you here. Star-Lord glared at her, do you know them too? Gamora said, I met them before I beat you up. Well, Tony, your new hairstyle is nice. Tony closed his visor irritably, enough. Don't mention your hair. Rocket greeted Link happily, hey, your hands are not bad. Link also smiled, not bad, Rocket. Tony opened his visor again and glared at Link, do you know all of them? Link nodded, Peter, Gamora, Rocket, Groot, Drax. Everyone looked at each other. Tony rolled his eyes, okay, Link. How much do you know? I won't ask any more questions. Let's leave quickly before the regular army comes to trouble us. So everyone hurriedly boarded Star-Lord's spaceship. Star-Lord said to Link a little angrily, hey, you lied to me. There is not a single song in the phone. Link said, you need to use Wi-Fi to download. Remember to buy the genuine version. Star-Lord was confused. Wi-Fi? Where is Wi-Fi? Link said, on Earth. Star-Lord. Link felt someone lift his hair, and when he turned around, he saw Groot was a little scared and retracted his hand. I'm Groot. Link smiled bitterly, I'm really a man. Gamora was surprised. Can you understand what this big tree said? Link said, yeah, just 3 words. It's easy to understand. Tony turned around and smiled. Link is a language genius. I'm Groot. Link smiled. Thank you for the compliment. Star-Lord asked hurriedly, how did you know we were imprisoned in the prison? Link said, I saw you being arrested. Star-Lord, okay. Wait for me, I'll get something. Drax said seriously, you are very strong. Then he said to Tony, your hair looks good. Tony said angrily, I don't think you are complimenting me. Several people came to the spaceship and waited. Gamora was full of questions and asked directly, what is your purpose in saving us? Link never liked to pretend, so he said directly, Spirit Ball. Gamora's face changed. Star-Lord just ran in excitedly and heard Link say this and immediately said, hey, you guys want to share the 4 billion too? Link said, inside the spirit orb, there is a purple gem called the Power Gem. Ronan plans to use the Power Gem to destroy Zelda. We can't let him escape. Gamora glanced at Link, it seems that your goal is the same as mine. Drax said angrily, Ronan wants to destroy Zelda, I want to destroy him. Rocket didn't care, who cares? We give the gem to the buyer, and he will take care of the rest. Link paused for a while, and said, I also want to borrow the Power Gem. You sit for a while. Gamora immediately became alert. What are you going to do? Link spread out his palm, and saw the other particles tumbling in Link's palm, sometimes turning into the appearance of Zelda, and sometimes into the appearance of the Master Sword. Gamora murmured, this is the Reality Stone. That's right. Link said, my body is parasitized by the Reality Stone. I plan to use the energy of the Power Stone to drive it out of my body. Drax looked at Link and said seriously, you are sick. Link said, I guess so. My skin color should be white. Star-Lord really wanted to give the orb to Link, but Gamora quickly stood in the middle and stared at Link. I don't believe your true intentions. Tony rubbed his brows. Please, go ask around on Earth. Link is a good man. Star-Lord said, well, I believe Link. Besides, the orb belongs to me now, and I have the right to use it. I'm Groot. Ahem. Rocket coughed, the orb is our common property. Gamora stared at Link. Link was at a disadvantage in front of him at this moment. He was too weird, and seemed to know a lot of things, and seemed to be scheming. This calm look reminded Gamora of her godfather Thanos. She knew Thanos' horrible plan. What if Link wants to do something like this? Link already has one Infinity Stone. What will happen if he gets another one? Chapter 211 Link Goes Rampage. A small spaceship traveled through the Milky Way. Due to the space warp, no other information could be detected except for a faint space trace. Gamora knew the Infinity Stones very well and said, the power of the Infinity Stones cannot be used by everyone. Many people who tried to control it were destroyed by the Infinity Stones. We don't know whether opening the Spirit Ball will cause a large-scale explosion. It is possible to blow us out of the Milky Way. Tony patted Gamora's shoulder disdainfully and laughed. Are the Infinity Stones so scary? Link and I have encountered them 3 times. The Space Stone, the Mind Stone, or the other particles. What's so strange about them? It's no big deal. Look, Tony suddenly aimed his eyes at Link and paused. Link's current weird appearance was caused by the other particles. Rocket calculated and exclaimed, that's 12 billion. I'm Groot. Gamora felt worse and worse as she listened, and looked at Tony deeply. I hope those gems are well kept. Tony smiled and said, one is in Asgard, one is on Earth. The last one is in Link's body, and they are all safe. Link's body changed again, and he shook his body. A dark red light suddenly burst out of his body. Drax and others panicked, and covered their eyes with their hands. According to normal rules, they were about to be hit against the wall by a powerful force. But no. Link shouted, you leave first. A sphere composed of other particles had formed around his body, and it was full of surging other particles. Fang had been rushed to the side and surrounded Link, crying worriedly. Star-Lord looked at Tony in shock. It doesn't look very safe. All of them were alert, based on their life instincts. Link barely suppressed the energy of the other particles, and limited the range of the runaway to the minimum, without hurting others. Tony looked at the others and asked hurriedly, who among you has medical skills? Drax said seriously, in my hometown, if you encounter a mad person, you will hit him on the back of the head with a mallet. Rocket looked at the halo around Link and shouted hurriedly, Groot. Knock Link out. Gamora yelled, didn't you see? Link is suppressing the reality stone. If you knock him out, the reality stone will be completely out of control. Ah. Link's body suddenly collapsed, and a large amount of other particles gushing out from his facial features, constantly tearing Link's body. In the light ball, the space was like a messy wave of light, swaying into one piece, and Link's body was twisted in a disorderly manner. Star-Lord was also panicked. Hey, Link, how can I help you? Link's scream was distorted and shattered by the chaotic reality factors inside. Star-Lord couldn't hear his recovery at all. Rocket yelled, airship, airship. This place is going to explode. Let's leave quickly. Ha. Star-Lord shouted, Link, how about I play a song for you? I like to listen to songs, to relieve my mood when I'm sick. I'm Groot. Rocket hugged his head, that's right. Peter, you idiot. Tony didn't know what to do for a while, and was a little panicked. Link has always been the calmest and most secure member of the team, and is very trustworthy. But this is the first time that Link has a problem. Link helped Tony a lot. But when Link needed help, Tony didn't know what to do. As for panicking and shouting along with Star-Lord's topic, oh, then you play the Beatles songs. Link likes them. Star-Lord glared at Tony in surprise. You are too old-fashioned. The other particle light ball wrapped around Link also shook violently. Tony's words just now reminded Link of some headache memories, which made the other particles even more out of control. Tony shouted hurriedly, okay, let's not talk about the Beatles. Calm down. I know you are very upset about the previous incident, and, Quill, you are a guy who only knows how to listen to old disco from the 1980s. What qualifications do you have to say anything about me? Huh? Star-Lord immediately retorted, you have a good aesthetic? What do you mean? Your ridiculous clown hair? Hey. Tony got angry as soon as he heard Star-Lord mention his hair. Do you know? On Earth, there is a 100-year-old grandfather named Steven Rogers who likes to wear leather jackets just like you. Link was inside, trying hard to control the other particles, which was already very strenuous. Although he could not convey information to the outside world, the quarrel between Tony and Star-Lord kept reaching his ears. The quarrel between these two Marvel chatterboxes gave Link a headache. I really don't know what kind of devastating scene these two people will be when they meet Ant-Man and another Peter later. Fang Ya shouted anxiously. Suddenly, he saw the spirit ball in Star-Lord's pocket and immediately flew over. With his two little claws, he grabbed the spirit ball and pulled it out. Star-Lord was anxious. "Hey, little snake, how dare you steal my Star-Lord's things?" He reached out to grab Fang. Fang panicked and spurted out a ball of fire from his mouth. It hit Star-Lord's forehead and burned the front half of Star-Lord's hair. Tony sneered and said, "Congratulations, you have the same hairstyle as me." Fang did a good job. He knew Fang's intention and said, "Give me the spirit ball. It's too dangerous for you to get close to Link. You will get hurt." Fang handed the spirit ball to Tony. Star-Lord shouted, "Don't mess around." Gamora pretended to grab it, and Tony's armor immediately activated a cannon launcher from his shoulder and aimed it at Gamora's face. Tony closed his visor. "If we don't help Link, the rampaging ether particles will kill everyone. Maybe this power gem can help Link." Tony was fully armed and then approached the ether particle light ball generated by Link, twisted the spirit ball, and released the purple gem inside. Tony's Iron Man immediately heard a ruthless alarm instead of Jarvis's calm voice, which made Tony a little uncomfortable. Iron Man analyzed the powerful energy contained in the power gem. Even though the armor had good protection, Tony didn't dare to touch it with his hands. He just carefully held the two halves of the spirit ball and moved towards Link step by step. The chaotic ether particles that escaped left traces on Iron Man. Drax murmured, "Tony is a man." Rocket jumped up and down. "Escape airship. I've been shouting for a long time. I'm Groot." "What? Do you still think it's interesting?" "Oh my god. The closer you get to Link, the stronger the impact you will suffer." Just when Tony was worried that his hand, along with the armor, would be torn apart by the terrible ether particles, at this moment, a strange magnetic force flew out along the light ball and wrapped around the spirit ball. Chapter 212 Reality Gem vs Power Gem. Although Link's consciousness was very confused and he couldn't tell the difference between the north and the south, he felt like a sailor who was tossed in the sea in a storm, unable to grasp anything and unable to distinguish between the sky and the sea. But he could more or less feel that Tony was risking his life to hand him the power stone. So Link tried to reach out the magnetic grabber to get the power stone. Now Link felt that his body seemed to be missing several organs. Under the impact of the ether particles, Link's body became a mess. Link couldn't even protect himself, and it was even more difficult to control the magnetic grabber. Under Link's effort, the power of the magnetic grabber controlled the spirit ball and gathered it into the abusive light ball, and Tony dodged it violently, as if he was electrocuted. Gamora said helplessly, "This is not a good idea. Two infinity stones touching each other may produce a terrible reaction." Tony was sweating all over just handing Link a light ball. He looked at Gamora and said, "Leave it to Link." As the reality stone felt the approach of the power stone, it became even more uncontrollable. Link's consciousness was now very disordered, and only a little bit of the will of the brave man in his heart was still holding on, so he didn't have a mental breakdown. The power stone was very dangerous. It was the Thanos among the stones, and it was unambiguous in destroying the planet and the race. Although the stone was like a time bomb, Link had no other choice at this moment. His own strength was not enough to suppress the reality stone, and he had to rely on external forces. Link immediately activated the energy of the power stone and used it to fight against the reality stone, releasing a large amount of energy. Because the power stone contained extremely strong power, it was the highest test of the mind, strength, and will of the person who controlled it. Many people thought that the powerful power of the Infinity Stones made them lose their minds and fall into self-destruction. Loki was affected by the Mind Stone and had the evil idea of occupying the earth in his heart. This was not only caused by the characteristics of the Mind Stone itself, but also by the external force that corroded the heart. After possessing powerful power, whether it is Asgard or the Avengers, they all keep their distance from the Infinity Stones. Even if a catastrophe occurs, they will never think of taking the Infinity Stones, except Tony. Because whether it is Thor or Rogers, they all know that too strong external forces will lead to internal collapse. Gamora sighed, "This is bad. Link may be backfired by the power of the Power Stone." Tony shook his head. "No, Link is a man with extremely strong willpower. He can master the Infinity Stones very well. Gamora looked deeply at the light ball in the distance and said, "This is a bad part." "Star-Lord, what are you talking about?" Gamora said, "So those who realize the power of the Infinity Stones will be very afraid of such things, carefully preserve them, and dare not use them. But there are some people who have superb talents, strong willpower, and unparalleled self-confidence. They believe that they can master the gems, and they also have the ability to master the Infinity Stones." Tony was stunned, and he seemed to understand what he meant. Gamora said, "Other people, because they know how powerful the Infinity Stones are, stay away from them, so the possibility of the Infinity Stones harming them disappears. And that kind of person, because they have the ability to control the stones, chooses to control them. At the same time, the Infinity Stones have the opportunity to destroy him." Gamora paused and said, "Link's current state is very dangerous." Gamora has been highly vigilant about the Infinity Stones from beginning to end. This made Tony worried, and he had no doubts about Link's will. However, now everyone, even if they can't see Link's face, knows that Link is struggling. In this mental state, is it really okay to use the Power Stone? But he has already handed the stone to Link, so he can only leave it to fate. The dark red light ball composed of other particles is still expanding. Several people were squeezed out of the door from the lounge and watched carefully outside the door. Star-Lord frowned. "My spaceship." Link used the Power Stone in the light ball and immediately became more conscious. The chaotic ether particles in Link's body were forcibly suppressed by Link using the Power Stone. Moreover, he tried to use the energy of the Power Stone to remove the annoying ether particles in his body. However, when he tried to probe the energy of the Power Stone into his body, Link's heart, which was already exhausted due to long-term severe pain and the sudden incident at the moment, was also infected by the Power Stone. Gamora said, "It started. The outer light ball has purple. Link's power is gradually replaced by the power of the Power Stone. Link's spirit may be messed up by the sudden power, causing a greater disaster." Tony snorted, "You think too much. You don't understand Link." But Gamora didn't care about Tony's words, and the anxiety on her face still didn't disappear. But soon, she began to release a look of surprise on her face. The outer light ball, symbolizing the purple component of the power gem, is becoming more and more, while the dark red component representing the reality gem is becoming less and less. At this time, it is the most dangerous. If you are not careful, the power gem will explode, which is enough to blow up the space-time collapse of this area. But the purple light at this moment is also very stable, gentle, and calm, not at all like the most violent cosmic power. Link was not changed by the power gem, but changed the power gem. At this moment, the outside of the light ball has turned purple. The dangerous light ball is slowly shrinking back. Gamora was surprised and said, "Did it really succeed?" Without the influence of external forces, he directly used one gem to interfere with another gem. Tony remembered what Zelda said, Link's power comes from his kind and brave heart, and it is the blessing of the goddess Hylia. So he also breathed a sigh of relief. Star-Lord breathed a sigh of relief, "My spaceship, finally saved." Although the ground of the lounge was broken by the light ball to form a big hole connecting to the bedroom below. But the light ball is getting smaller and smaller, and everyone is wondering. Because the diameter of the light ball is smaller than Link's height. What about Link inside? What happened to Link? Drax opened his mouth wide. "Link, is he dead?" Tony roared, "Shut up. You muscle man with rotten tomatoes all over your body." The light of the ball of light dissipated, and inside. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 213, Link Wolf appears. Third update. Tony was in his 30s and almost 40, and he had never been frightened like this. At this moment, Gamora, Star-Lord, Rocket, Groot, and Drax were all stunned. Even the power gem that had closed again in the spirit ball rolled to his feet, but they didn't react. They all looked at the place where the light ball disappeared. Star-Lord asked blankly, "Rocket, is this one of your kind?" Rocket shook his head obediently, "I don't know." Drax looked at it seriously. "It looks delicious." Gamora held her forehead. "Oh my god. Tony screamed, "Oh my god." He rushed over, slid down miserably, and hugged it in his arms. Fang also flew over happily. "Link. Are you Link? Link. Are you Link?" Tony was a little incoherent, watching Fang rubbing his head against his furry cheek intimately. The person who could make Fang so close to him could not be anyone else except Link. "So, Link, how did you become a husky?" In his arms was a black dog with strange white patterns on its body, gathering on its forehead. For some reason, each of its long ears had an earring, and on its left wrist, there was an iron ring with an iron chain, which was particularly beautiful. Tony wailed, and for a moment, he didn't know what to do. This world is too crazy. How could a beautiful blonde boy become a husky? Tony felt that his three views had collapsed. He had never lost his composure like this in his life. Everyone rushed over. Star-Lord shouted, "Rocket, is Link your distant relative?" Rocket stroked Link's soft fur in a rare silence. Fang suddenly got angry and pretended to bite. Rocket said hey, and retracted his hand, glaring at Fang. "You little snake, what do you want to do? What are you arguing about?" Link shook his head and woke up. He found that everyone was looking at him quietly. Only Fang happily licked his cheek with his tongue. When Link opened his eyes, he found himself in Tony's hard arms. He felt uncomfortable and wanted to break free and push Tony away. But soon he found that the two hands he stretched out, why were they two furry paws? Link was stunned. Tony looked sad and said, "Link, I hope you accept the reality. You have become a dog." Star-Lord murmured, "A talking dog?" Drax said seriously, "Same as Rocket." Rocket was confused as to whether he and Link were the same species. When Link heard this, he quickly jumped out of Tony's arms, moved his body, turned his head, and saw his long tail. His mind suddenly cleared up. He turned into a wolf. This is the setting in the Legend of Zelda, Twilight Princess. Link has two forms, human and wolf. Transformed into a wolf, Link turned his head and felt his body was so strange, but since it was a setting in the game, he naturally accepted it. I also had some guesses in my mind. Does this mean Twilight Princess will also come to the Marvel world? Another princess? Let's not talk about these for now. Link recalled that he used the Power Stone to suppress the memory of the Reality Stone. The Reality Stone was very strange. Instead of being excreted from the body, it was hidden in Link's body and could not be found. It was as if it had merged with Link. It must be because of the Reality Stone. The Reality Stone can help Malekith and open the Dark World. The ether particles hold the key to reality and fantasy. The intersection of light and darkness. The war between the world of light and the realm of shadow. That is why Link turned into a shadow form. Link Wolf. Although he became Link Wolf, because the pain of his body and the ether particles disappeared, Link seemed particularly relaxed. Controlling the new body, he turned around, jumped up and played with Fang, and quickly adapted to the new body. And all this made Tony feel even more painful. Oh my god. His personality has become that of a dog. How should Tony go back and explain to the two Zeldas? "Sorry, I'm sorry that your boyfriend turned into a dog while I was out." Thinking of the expressions of the two Zeldas, Tony wanted to die. His overly strong sense of responsibility tortured him again in this weird situation. The atmosphere was particularly awkward, and Star-Lord wanted to say something to ease it, so he said, "Well, this dog inherited Link's excellent qualities, and it's really pretty." Link Wolf turned around and said dissatisfiedly, "I'm a wolf." Then seeing Tony's broken expression, Link Wolf carried Fangs on his back, walked over, touched Tony's hand with his wolf claws, and said, "What are you thinking about?" Tony said sadly, "I shouldn't have given you the Power Stone." Link Wolf shook his head, "You did the right thing. If I didn't have the Power Stone, I don't know how I would end it. But you're like this now. It's okay." Link Wolf smiled, "I will change back sooner or later." Star-Lord was a little sad, "But we don't have dog food here." Swish. An arrow flew over at once, only 1 centimeter away from Star-Lord's eyelids. Link Wolf said coldly, "I want human food." Star-Lord laughed dryly, "Heh. You haven't lost your skills, even though you've turned into a dog instead of a wolf." Link Wolf was glowing with electricity and said, "Do you want to try it?" Star-Lord stepped back and waved his hand hastily. "I'm Groot." Link Wolf used all 4 limbs to climb onto Groot's shoulder and smiled. "Thank you." Rocket hesitated for a moment and said, Groot's shoulder. I'll give you half. Since Link had turned into a wolf, Rocket felt particularly close to him. A farce. The spaceship space jumped across most of the galaxy and arrived at the planet where the collectors were, the unknown land. Tony secretly checked the internal data of the spaceship and absorbed some advanced knowledge from aliens. When he looked up, he saw a planet that looked like a big skull. Tony exclaimed, "This planet really looks like a monster's head." Gamora said, "That's right. It's a head." Tony. Everyone else was stunned. Link was wondering, where is the body of this big skull? Gamora continued to explain, this is an ancient skull. There is an interstellar organization that collects brain, bone marrow, and other things from this skull. This planet is the world of desperados. It is very dangerous. Drive the spaceship carefully. Tony took many photos. Link felt an ominous atmosphere. It seemed that some disaster was waiting for him. Link was already very used to it. Chapter 214 Peeping Tom. Tony, Link, Star-Lord and others entered the interior of the unknowing existence. After Tony came to the alien world, for safety reasons, he always wore the Iron Man suit, which was shining with gold and very cool. Although the green afro on his head, Tony tried to fix this wig hairstyle, but it was cut off and became even uglier. It damaged his handsomeness, but it was also enough to attract attention. There were many robbers, murderers, thieves, refugees from planetary destruction, and failed biological experiments. There were all kinds of people, and many people put their greedy eyes on Tony. Tony held Link Wolf in his arms and muttered helplessly, "Please, this armor is the only valuable thing I have." Link lay in Tony's hard arms and looked around. The ground was dirty, and Link Wolf hated to dirty his claws, so he jumped on the shoulders of Groot, Tony, Star-Lord, and Gamora instead of walking on the ground. Tony was annoyed, so he just grabbed Link in his arms and stopped him from running around. At this time, a group of poor children came running to the roadside, clamoring for Star-Lord and his group to give them something. Gamora whispered, "Be careful with your wallet." Star-Lord smiled and said, "I have been traveling in the interstellar for so many years. When have I ever suffered a loss?" Groot squatted down and gave a bunch of small flowers that he produced and sold himself to a child who looked like a human on Earth, and then smiled warmly. Even though Tony was far away from Earth, his pampered face showed that he was very rich. The begging children here had very vicious eyes and looked at Tony eagerly. Tony was surrounded by a group of children and felt a little helpless. There were no pockets on Iron Man, so Tony was not afraid that they would steal his things. They were also good at secretly breaking off a piece of armor from Iron Man's battlesuit. Tony said jokingly, "Children, I'm so poor that I only have a big dog. If you want it, take it." Then he stuffed Link in his arms to him. Link Wolf turned around and glared at Tony, grinning. Link made a threatening snort because he was afraid that the children would pull his furry ears. All the other children were scared away, except for a little girl who smiled and stretched out her dirty little hand, touched Link's wolf head, kissed Link's wolf nose, and ran away with the other children. Link was stunned. Tony said with a smile, "It's unusual." He turned into a dog and was still so popular with girls. "Tell me the truth. What's the matter with the selfie photo with Natasha in your phone?" "I'm a wolf," Link said angrily. "Natasha often calls me privately, and when Natasha asked me to take a photo, the two princesses were also present. What's so strange about this?" Peppa even talked on the phone with Rogers all night long. Tony was stunned for a moment. Peppa? Rogers? Peppa only knows a few words. How did he communicate with Rogers? Link said, "Then I don't know." "Yeah, what are you doing?" Tony held Link Wolf in his arms, and Yaya was sleeping on Link's furry back. The child just now seemed to have woken Yaya up. Yaya woke up in a daze, and her head seemed to want to squeeze into the sand, drilling into Link's fur. Tony laughed and said, "When Peppa kicked the quilt, he looked like this." Link Wolf was suddenly startled. "Tony, why did you peek at Peppa sleeping?" Tony coughed and said, "We were doing experiments all night that day. People become very sensitive late at night and want to find someone to chat with. There are two princesses in your house, and I can't risk my life to go in. I had to find Peppa, but seeing that he was sleeping dishonestly, he seemed very happy, so I didn't bother him." Link thought about what happened that morning, shook his ears, and said, "So you secretly hid Peppa's leaf mask and replaced it with an Ultraman mask?" Link remembered very clearly that morning, when he came back from sword practice, he was startled by Peppa's frightened cry, and hurriedly ran to check with the two princesses. Peppa was wearing an Ultraman plastic shell mask on his head, and his leaf mask was missing. Peppa cried very hard, which scared Tony, and he hurriedly took out the leaf mask to comfort Peppa. But Peppa was still unhappy with Tony for many days, and even called Rogers to complain. He babbled and didn't say anything clearly. Rogers just vaguely knew that Tony was bullying Peppa. That night, Rogers came to the door in a rage. "At that time, I felt very lonely," Tony sighed. Link burst out laughing. "By the way, Link, Yair is scratching your back. Is he trying to find lice on your body?" "Catching lice?" Link was so scared that his ears stood up. He is such a clean person, Wolf. If he finds lice on his body, he will be very uncomfortable. "What should I do?" Link panicked. Without thinking, electric light came out of his body. Tony's face changed. "Wait. I'm kidding." Zzz. Tony hurriedly put on the armor. His battle suit has a strong anti-electric function. There is no need to be afraid. But the people around him are in trouble. Tony happened to be walking in the center. "Oh, Link. Wow. I'm Groot." So comfortable. Gamora, Star-Lord, Rocket, Groot, and Drax all electrocuted them. No matter if they had long hair or tattoos, no matter if they had tree bark or green skin, they were all electrocuted to black. It also caused a commotion in the surroundings. The street vendors and pedestrians looked at the group of people in surprise, and suddenly they all turned black. Fang and Tony were fine. Link shook his body and didn't see any dirty things coming down, so he breathed a sigh of relief. Suddenly he came to his senses and found that he had electrocuted everyone enough. Rocket looked at his beloved hair, which had turned black, and yelled and took out his gun, wanting to kill Link here with a cannonball. Star-Lord was also furious, rushing over to grab Link's tail, spinning it 3,000 times, and throwing it away. Groot was also very angry when he saw that the moss that he had accumulated with great difficulty on his body was electrocuted to death by Link. "Sorry." Seeing that he had offended everyone, Link Wolf hastened to apologize. At this moment, he caught a glimpse of a strange figure from the corner of his eye. The girl looked at Link with a charming smile, turned around, and left lightly, disappeared in the crowd. Link Wolf's hair stood up, and he shouted, "Stop." He didn't care about the dirt on the ground, and flew over directly with Fang in his arms. "Wait. Can I fly?" Link suddenly blinked, and wings of light appeared on his ribs, and he flew over at once. Link flees for fear of crime, and behind him is Star-Lord and others who yell, "Link, stop right there." Chapter 215 Twilight Princess. Link flapped his wings and flew over, knocking over people on the way. However, he still lost the girl. The girl had blonde hair down to her waist, her face seemed to be glowing. She was wearing a long dress, and 2 strands of hair hung down from her chest. She looked very similar to the Washan princess, and was equally beautiful. Link saw her in the crowd at a glance. The Legend of Zelda, Zelda and Twilight Princess. After Link was transformed into a wolf by the Reality Stone, he had guessed that the Twilight Princess might also come to the Marvel world. Unexpectedly, she really appeared. But why did the Twilight Princess hide from him? If it was the Twilight Princess, Link would be able to recognize him, even if he was a wolf. Damn it. Lost. Link was a little impatient, and suddenly he took a deep breath, and felt a faint fragrance on the tip of his nose, the breath of the Twilight Princess. When Link transformed into a wolf, his sense of smell increased by dozens of times. The people around him looked at the wolf with wings flying in the air in horror. A circle of open space was made around Link. Link Wolf determined the position clearly, and rushed over directly. Although he had recognized that the girl was the Twilight Princess, Link felt something was wrong. He couldn't say what was wrong. If he really had to describe it in words, it would be that the Twilight Princess didn't have any sense of light. Every Zelda, no matter which time and space, or which universe, even if they have different looks and personalities, and even if there is a Zelda who is not a princess, but they all have one common characteristic, the sacred aura that resembles the goddess Hylia. Link rushed forward again, speeding up, flashing like a ghost in the crowded alley. The faint fragrance at the tip of Link's nose became stronger and stronger. He rushed to the corner of an alley, and before he could turn the corner, a figure flashed out, stretched out two slender hands, and grabbed Link's waist. Link was surprised. His speed was so fast, and someone could actually hug him under such momentum. You know, when he was in Asgard, Link flew at the highest speed, and crashed into a dark elf spaceship. In an instant, Link Wolf tensed up, and was about to release lightning. But Link's nose twitched, and he felt that he was in the embrace of a familiar fragrance. Twilight Princess. Link subconsciously suppressed the power of thunder. He didn't want to hurt the princess. When he turned around, it was indeed the Twilight Princess, who was hugging him with a smile. Her eyes were curved, and she looked very gentle. But the next action was not gentle at all. She grabbed Link's head and rubbed it hard, making Link's mind confused. Yea thought that the Twilight Princess was going to attack Link, and a ball of fire spurted out of her mouth. Link could no longer stop Yea. But the Twilight Princess dodged lightly, and not a single hair was ignited. She threw Link, who was struggling in her arms, out. She smiled coquettishly. What a cute big dog. It must be nice to take a nap on you. Yea flew to Link's back with grievance, and helped Link to tidy up his messy hair. She gritted her teeth at Twilight Princess. Link looked at Twilight Princess warily. Would Twilight Princess smile so charmingly? Twilight Princess and Washang Princess are very similar in character and appearance. Both are beautiful, and have extraordinary temperament. Similarly, as the highest ruler of the Kingdom of Hyrule, she behaves steadily, and her smile and sadness are very restrained. However, compared with the brave Washang Princess fighting on the front line, Twilight Princess's character tends to be weak and kind. In order to protect her subjects, she chose to surrender, and was imprisoned by the enemy. In his memory, Link has never seen how Twilight Princess smiles. The temperament of this Twilight Princess is too coquettish, which makes Link very confused. Twilight Princess extended her delicate hand, and said with a smile, "Hey, Link, my hero, kiss the back of my hand and swear allegiance to me." Link threatened with a threatening sound. Twilight Princess smiled even more brilliantly. How fierce. This is not good, being so malicious to your beloved princess. Then, Link's face changed. Because from the feet of Twilight Princess, dark red luminous particles rose up. Link was very familiar with this kind of thing. It was the ether particles that made Link suffer for a long time. The other particles flew lightly into the air, and suddenly condensed into two sharp spikes, stabbing at Link. Link roared, turned around, and smashed the two spikes with his tail. Then, Twilight Princess ran over quickly, still with that seductive smile on her face, but her men showed no mercy, and stabbed with a sword. Link rushed forward, summoned the Master Sword, bit the hilt in his mouth, and slashed with the sword. Clang! The two swords collided in the air. Twilight Princess was obviously much weaker than Washang Princess, and the blade flew out of her hand. But Twilight Princess did not panic at all, but continued to turn around and move forward, as if dancing. She stretched out her hands, and pinched Link's ears, one in each hand, pulling out. Link felt pain. He only needed to tilt his head to cut off Twilight Princess' wrists with the Master Sword. But he could not do such a thing anyway. Even though it was not completely certain that the strange girl in front of him was Washang Princess. Link took back the Master Sword and simply ran into Twilight Princess's arms. Twilight Princess cried out, "Link, you pervert." Link was helpless, but he was a wolf. She dodged and grabbed Link's tail. Link's wolf tail was caught, and the boss was very uncomfortable. Fangar was so angry that he opened his mouth and blew out another mouthful of fire. But Twilight Princess blew gently and blew the flames back to Fangar's face. "Hey." Twilight Princess pulled Link Wolf into her arms, then reached around and tickled Link's abdomen. Twilight Princess laughed. Gurgle gurgle. Itchy. Link laughed in Twilight Princess' arms and struggled desperately. This was no longer a fight. In the battle with Twilight Princess, Link was restricted and didn't dare to use his powerful sword skills and abilities. He was a wolf, so he was controlled by this strange Twilight Princess. "I told you not to be obedient." Twilight Princess laughed. But at this moment, Link moved his body, tore it apart, and transformed into another black wolf. With a swing of his head, the Master Sword was placed on Twilight Princess Jade-like neck. "Let me go," Link said. Twilight Princess, with a pitiful expression, let go of Link and asked timidly, "What are you going to do to me?" Link smiled and said, "Take off your disguise. I recognize you." Chapter 216, Shadow Princess Madonna. Third update. The Twilight Princess smiled. "What? You finally recognized me? Are you lying to me? Tell me who I'm first, and I'll change back to my original appearance." Link smiled and said, "Madonna." "Yeah." The Twilight Princess nodded, and her face suddenly darkened, becoming the same dark blue color as Link's before. She turned around, and turned into a little girl wearing an ancient and heavy iron crown. She had big eyes, revealing a naughty and scheming expression, and a pair of cute little tiger teeth. She was small in size, and sat on Link's neck very naturally, patting Link's wolf's head. In the world of Twilight Princess, the one who fought and adventured with Link, and was even the closest to him, was not Zelda. It was the princess from the world of shadows, the dark blue little girl sitting on Link's neck, Madonna. This is the real Twilight Princess. The Twilight Princess in the Legend of Zelda. Twilight Princess is not Zelda, but Madonna. However, in order to distinguish it from other Zeldas, the Zelda of the Twilight world is still called the Twilight Princess, and Madonna is called by her original name. How awkward. When Yaya saw that her exclusive position was occupied by Madonna, she was so angry that she pretended to bite Madonna. Madonna hurriedly emerged from her helmet with an illusory arm made of shadows, grabbed Yaya, and threw her away. Yaya was so angry that her eyes were filled with tears, and she flew to Link and complained. Link said dissatisfiedly, "Madonna, Yaya is still a child less than 2 months old. Don't bully her, okay?" Madonna moved her butt back, grabbed Yaya and put her on Link's back, and said to Yaya, "How about this?" Yaya grinned at Madonna. Madonna was a little dissatisfied. "You can't let me go completely?" Yaya nodded seriously. Madonna shook her head. "Absolutely not. How can I let you, a little dragon, occupy my Link's soft and comfortable back?" Link hurriedly asked, "Madonna, how did you come to this world?" Madonna smiled and tickled Link, and said, "I missed you." "Of course, that's only one of the reasons. The second reason?" Madonna opened her hands. "It's this." A ball of feather particles was hovering in the palm of Madonna's small hand. Madonna said, "Ever since you turned into a shadow wolf, I have felt your presence. This sticky thing should be called the reality gem. It opens the channel between the Shadow Kingdom and this universe. So I was inspired and came here to find you." Link was puzzled. "Let's not talk about this for now. You should quickly change me from the wolf form." Madonna waved her hands innocently. "I can't do it. There must be enough feather particles before I can turn you back into a human." Link asked, "What about the remaining other particles?" Madonna pointed to the sky. "He is coming soon." This sentence made Link feel inexplicably ominous. Since this is the center of the land of no knowledge, the sky that can be seen is only the eye sockets of this god's head, with a small piece of starry sky. Madonna's tone became serious. "Ganon's cursed power has merged with the other particles, and with Malekith's body and residual soul as the original body, it is plotting to create a monster capable of destroying the world." Fangai rolled around on Link's wolf back out of boredom. She was innocent, and didn't notice that the atmosphere was gradually getting heavier. Madonna smiled and said, "I have been on this planet for 2 or 3 days. In addition to learning the language, I also learned one thing. That is, this planet is the head of a super large life form in this universe, an ancient god. Link, when you entered the interior of this planet, you must have thought, since this is a head, then where is the body of the ancient god?" Madonna pointed to the sky again. "The body of the ancient god has been controlled and activated by Ganon's cursed power and another part of the reality stone. It is flying over here. Once the head and body merge, the ancient god will be resurrected under the control of Ganon's power. The entire galaxy will be destroyed." Link's face changed. The unknowing land, as the head of a deceased life, is incredibly large. How huge would the body of this ancient god be? It was already difficult for Link to fight a Ganon disaster titan. And now, here comes another enemy that is hundreds of times larger and the size of a supergiant planet. How can he fight? Don't worry, don't worry." Madonna hugged Link's head and smiled. "I will help you." Midona talked about her plan. We can enter the body of the ancient god and destroy Ganon's cursed power before the body flies over and merges with the head of the unknown. But it's still very difficult for the two of us. Oh, and there's a little fire dragon. Let's find some helpers. Link remembered Tony and the others, so he ran away in a hurry. At this time, in the starry sky, a huge dry headless corpse, as tall as the earth, seemed to be activated by some power, and the dry body was emitting fluctuations again. From his chest, from the rotten ribs, you can see that a heart wrapped in Ganon's pollution began to tremble weakly, as if it was about to resume beating. The headless body of the god was approaching the unknown at a rapid speed. On the shoulder of the headless corpse stood a person covered in black. He was the dead Malekith, but his body was covered with a lot of Ganon pollution, and the internal structure was being rebuilt. In a deformed and twisted corpse, a strange evil creature was born. The Ganon pollution exploded, revealing the face of the new life. Red hair, fierce face, Ganon in human form. Link. Earth. The two princesses have been waiting in London for 7 days. The whole world is reporting on the events in London. Since this is the only abnormal disaster that has occurred in other cities besides New York recently, it is very novel. There are also a lot of reports about Tony and Link who are missing in this disaster, and rumors are endless. Thor has returned to Asgard and asked Heimdall to look for them. The two princesses are waiting silently. The hearts of the two suddenly stopped beating at the same time, slowing down a beat, and almost fainted. It scared Peppa. Zelda stared at the Washan princess in a daze. Did you feel it too? The Washan princess nodded silently. Ganon seems to be alive. Chapter 217. Power Gem vs. Link's Mouth. Fourth update. Not only the two princesses, Link, who was far away on the other side of the galaxy, also immediately felt a ferocious breath from fate, which was approaching here quickly. Link's heart sank, but he said nothing. Ganon, you finally showed up, not hiding anymore. Link was not afraid, but full of fighting spirit. He quickly ran to the collector's location, and because he was holding two little guys, a little girl and a little dragon, he attracted attention. In the casino, Link did not find Tony and the others, so they must have entered the collection room of the collector. When Link was about to get in, there was a sudden explosion, and a terrible force burst out from the collection room. Midona hurriedly said, "What powerful thing exploded?" Link ran over in an instant, and said to Midona, "Hold my shield." Link is now in the state of Shadow Wolf, and has a magical fit with Midona. Midona can even help Link to perform shield counter in the wolf form. Midona is Link's third arm. Midona skillfully helped Link hold the Hylian shield, and said with a smile, "This shield is pretty good. How about giving it to me, Link?" Link said, "I'll just lend it to you." "Push it." Midona felt a violent and terrible energy wave rushing towards her, and hurriedly used the shadow arm hidden in her thick iron crown to grab the shield and block it. Who? The energy of the power gem's explosion hit the shield. Link felt a powerful impact, but his speed did not slow down, and he continued to accelerate and pounce forward. Seeing that Link was running very fast, Yair grabbed the hair with a little fear, and did not let go, sticking close to Link's back. In the blink of an eye, Link rushed to the center of the energy explosion, where the power gem was. At this moment, the collector's maid who tried to control the power gem shattered her body and burst into purple light. At this moment, Tony and others were hit into a gap in the ground by the powerful energy. If it weren't for this gap, they would be directly exposed to the energy impact of the power gem. Except for Tony in his battle suit and Star-Lord with special blood in his body, the rest of them would be wiped out. Under the chaotic purple energy waves, Tony and others looked at Link Wolf and rushed over without hesitation. At the same time, they shouted, "No! Danger!" But Link was fully focused and rushed over. Just when everyone, including Tony, thought that Link would be blown away and seriously injured by the energy of the power gem, Link did a strange thing. Opened his mouth, closed it. Link bit the power gem in his mouth, ate it. Tony, Star-Lord, Gamora, Rocket, Groot, I'm Groot. Star-Lord looked at Tony and asked stupidly, "Is Link that hungry? He ate all my food when we arrived at the land of no knowledge." Gamora held her forehead. "Oh my god. Who is this person? No, what kind of dog is this?" Although Link looked reckless, he immediately used the time stop skill to control the power gem after swallowing it into his mouth, preventing a larger scale of energy from bursting out, and then opened his mouth. Midona, even using the shadow arm, split the spirit ball in half and put the power gem back inside. Tony and others climbed up. Their faces were all very ugly. Although they knew the power gem was powerful, this was the first time they saw the power burst out with their own eyes. Only then did they truly realize how amazing it was that Link was still able to use the power gem safely and not explode and self-destruct when he was restrained by the other particles before. As an intelligent race that has survived since ancient times, the collector has experienced many storms and waves, but he was also shocked by this sudden explosion. He looked around and saw that the collection room he had spent so many years to build was blown into ruins. The dog, who had been wearing a spacesuit, was still standing next to the ruins cabinet. After peeing, he walked away. Link looked at Tony. "Are you okay?" Tony and others looked at Midona on Link's back. Midona greeted everyone. "Hi, I'm Link's girlfriend Midona." Everyone. "Link, hey." Midona sighed. "Well, I'm actually Link's ex-girlfriend." "Ah. Don't leave me out." Link said. "Midona, my friend, is also a princess." Tony was amazed. "Don't you know too many princesses?" Midona put her face close to Link's wolf face and pressed it tightly. "What's up, Link? What are you hiding from me?" Gamora took back the spirit ball and said to the collector, "Do you really have the ability to keep the spirit ball safe?" The collector shook his head with a dry laugh. Attention was quickly attracted to Link and the two little guys on Link's back. The collector came over and exclaimed, "A talking dog, a strange life from another world, and a little fire dragon that has never been seen before. Are you willing to be my collection?" Link said coldly, "I'm a wolf, and you better not pay attention to them." Link took 2 steps forward, and the collector retreated under the pressure of Link's power. This made Gamora, who knew how powerful the collector was, feel incredible. The collector is a kind of life that survived the Big Bang. Its lifespan is immeasurable. It coldly watched the ebb and flow of life on the planets and the universe. Its own strength is also quite terrifying. Even such a strong man would be afraid when he saw Link. In fact, Link himself was also testing the collector. In the movie, the collector is very mysterious, but he has never shown his strong strength. In the end, he died at the hands of Thanos, which was anticlimactic. Is such a person really qualified to keep the Infinity Stones? But in the end, nothing was found out. Link said to the collector, "You have the highest status on this planet. Hurry up and spread the word. There is a planetary level monster coming here. Get everyone out." Tony exclaimed, "What? What's going on? Link, what happened again?" Link said helplessly, "Remember the monster we fought, the Calamity Ganon Titan? There is a terrible monster that is at least 500 times bigger than the Calamity Ganon Titan, flying towards this side. Oh my god." Star-Lord couldn't believe it. "Are you kidding? I seem to feel that Ganon seems to have been resurrected. Get ready for a fierce battle." Link turned and yelled at the collector, "Hurry up and get everyone off this planet. What are you standing there for?" The collector was still in a daze. When he heard that Link was angry, he immediately ran over in a hurry. Chapter 218 The Greatest Enemy in History. Link told Star-Lord and the others about the matter, and Wolf kept looking for the spaceship. Rocket shouted, "What's going on? The body of the ancient god is actually going to be resurrected." Tony said sullenly, "What's so surprising? I've seen it once. Ganon's methods are just 2 or 3. Does he dare to change his tactics and stop innovating in size?" Star-Lord hesitated. "Can we really help?" Rocket screamed, "What help? Run for your life. What does this have to do with us?" Gamora said seriously, "This is related to the safety of the entire universe. I know that the Infinity Stones are not good things." Several people sat on a small industrial collection spaceship and flew towards Star-Lord's main spaceship. Suddenly, Link's ears moved, and he asked hurriedly, "Where is Drax?" Suddenly, several fighter planes flew in from the sky and landed on the ground. Link and the others also braked in a hurry. After turning around, they saw the spaceships with oblique wings on the eggs. Tony and Link were still unclear, but the others could tell at a glance that they were the combat spaceships of Ronan the Accuser. Drax stood on the street with two blades in his hands, laughing wildly. The others were quite helpless. Star-Lord screamed, "What are you doing?" Everyone shifted their gaze again and saw a bold middle-aged man with blue skin walking over with his fierce men. Tony sighed, "Okay, Ronan's army, the Raiders gang, and a huge ancient alien corpse turned into zombies and are against us young people who are less than 500 years old." Link immediately arranged, "Peter, Gamora, Rocket, you protect the power gem and deal with Ronan's army. Tony, you go to help Drax. I'll find a way to deal with the corpse of the ancient god." Tony shook his head. "No, I'll go with you. I can't let you go alone to deal with an enemy as big as a planet." Midona smiled and said, "Not alone. There are also me and Fang." Fang listened to Midona talking about him and turned his head away with a snort. Although he said so, Link had already taken action, pushing Tony off the small industrial spacecraft, and he took Fang and Midona into the sky. Tony closed his visor and muttered, "Okay, let me understand the aliens' attack methods. If you make me angry, I will sell arms to your planet." Link used his two wolf claws to control the spacecraft to rush into the sky. After all, it was not a human hand, so it was difficult to control. The small industrial spacecraft bumped into each other. Midona and Yaya were dizzy. Midona said angrily, "What are you doing?" With a click, a shadow arm stretched out from her thick iron crown to grasp the steering wheel. This tool from another world is so difficult to use. The speed is so slow, and the energy is not enough. "Link, you think of a way." Link said, "Okay." Suddenly, lightning was released from his body, filling the small industrial spacecraft with electricity to full. The small industrial spacecraft suddenly accelerated. Although Link is now in the form of Shadow Wolf, the other particles in his body no longer limit his body energy, so Link is much stronger than when he first met Star-Lord. With Link's super battery, this small industrial spacecraft, which is only suitable for collecting brain marrow, can immediately achieve ultra-long distance navigation. After entering space, the speed is further increased. After sailing at full speed for 20 minutes, Link found nothing. He suddenly looked at Midona in a panic. "Do you know the direction to find the ancient gods?" Midona shook her head timidly. "I don't know." Link was shocked. "You don't even know the direction, and you dare to drive around? Aren't you afraid of getting lost in outer space?" Midona argued, "Even if I don't know the direction, what does it matter? Anyway, the headless body of a god is so huge that it's easy to see." Yeah, saw Link Wolf being fierce to Midona, and he also took advantage of the dog's power and bared his teeth at Midona, taking the opportunity to bully Midona. At this time, Midona saw a small green dot appear in the space, which was slowly getting bigger, although it was not clear what it was. But the weak ether particles that Midona possessed also reacted. Midona said in a deep voice, "Here it comes." Link turned his head suddenly, and he felt a twitching and ferocious feeling in his heart. Link also felt the strong power of the Ganon curse. Midona drove the spaceship and approached the headless body of the god. The two objects were approaching at a rapid speed. The body of the headless corpse of the god was rapidly enlarged in Link's field of vision. Enlarged. This was a skinny body, just like a mummy, with a layer of rotten skin wrapped around the bones. The body was surrounded by a yellow-green gas, which Link always felt was poisonous. Perhaps because there was little oxygen left in the spacecraft, Link felt a little tight in his breathing. The headless corpse of the god, whose height was comparable to the diameter of the earth, gave Link too much shock. To be an opponent of such a large and almost barbaric body, this kind of thing. With all his strength, Link could destroy a big hole in the center of New York City. But even so, no one would think that Link was challenging the earth. The size difference was too great. If the headless corpse of the god was compared to an adult, Link was not even as big as this adult, and the mites on his body were at most small germs. What a big gap is this? The size of the two people is not in the same dimension at all. Midona saw Link's face tightening and hurriedly comforted him. "Don't worry. We don't need to destroy him. We just need to destroy the power of Ganon's curse in his body." Yaya was also a little afraid, and Link noticed her trembling body in his hair. Link immediately smiled and said, "Yaya, what are you worried about? I'm here. Don't be afraid." At this moment, Midona and Yair's sense of security were all placed on Link. Link had been relied on by many people, but he had no one to rely on. For him, becoming the hope of others, taking on the fate of the rise and fall of the world, and having no one to rely on except himself. These things, he has become accustomed to. Zelda often prayed for the goddess Hylia to bless Link, but Link himself rarely did so, even when he encountered great danger and suffering. He was the light in the eyes of others. Link felt that the Master Sword in the weapon space was chirping slightly. The sound of the sword was transmitted to Link's heart. Link was no longer thinking about anything else at this time, and was fully prepared for the upcoming war. Midona, drive over there at full speed. Chapter 219 Link flees. Third update. Link soon realized that he had made a wrong decision. He and Midona screamed as they crashed into the corpse of the headless god. No matter how Midona tried to slow down, she failed. The size of the headless god's body already had a very obvious gravitational pull. Link had just ordered Midona to go full speed. It was equivalent to letting the spaceship hit the earth at the fastest speed. Link and Midona were a little panicked. On the contrary, Yair found it very funny to see Link yelling, and flew around in the cockpit. The small industrial spaceship directly crashed through the ribs of the headless god's body, and drilled into his chest. The spaceship rolled into a rotten and dry corpse like an orbit. The headless god's body was a mess of structures, very similar to the inside of the human body. After years of decay, it was filthy. The glass of the spaceship was immediately covered with green mucus, and rolled back and forth like a marble. The spaceship rolled around inside the headless god, while Link rolled around inside the spaceship. Without saying a word, he embraced Midona and Yair, came to his chest, curled up and surrounded them to prevent them from getting hurt. Link was like a pulsator washing machine, slamming hard in the cockpit of the spaceship. Fortunately, the cockpit was small, and after the initial frequent collisions, Link immediately released a large amount of cold air, forming a layer of ice on his body surface, which directly filled the entire cockpit. Link was fixed in the center. Pop. The small industrial spaceship finally couldn't withstand the impact and fell apart, and an ice ball rolled out of it. It exploded with a loud bang, and Link walked out staggering, with Yair on his back, and a dazzling Midona in his mouth. Link put Midona on the ground and shook his head vigorously. Looking around, he found himself in the structure of the chest of the headless god's body. Because of the long time since death, the chest cavity of the headless god has formed a square circle. Link also had a headache. He saw several huge grey beetles, walking on their 16 legs, crawling towards Link quickly. Their messy and dirty mouth pits made Link very disgusted. Link stepped forward, bit the Master Sword in his mouth, and shook his head. Two sword energies crushed these ugly giant beetles like a motorcycle drift. The place where Link stepped on was a dry ground, and around it were small pools of bubbling and emitting a foul smell, densely spread throughout the area. A creature as huge as the ancient god, after death, is a whole new world. It is a whale fall in the universe. His head is relied on by a large number of miners for survival, and even becomes a settlement for some people such as collectors. Some families have reproduced for 3 or 4 generations in the land of ignorance. Compared with the head of the ancient god, his body is even larger. After death, it also uses this body as a platform to become a new world full of life. However, the land of ignorance was invaded by humans from the outside world, and the body of the ancient god, for some unknown reason, disappeared in the universe, and has never been discovered. The body of the headless god was eroded by the parasites in his body. This place has become the kingdom of the parasites in the god's body. Midona shook her head and stood up, smelling a foul smell, and said, "I hate this place. Let's go to the head quickly." Suddenly, there was a tremor from the ground. Link rushed over, bit Midona's crown with his teeth, and threw her to his body. Then he rushed to the sky and floated. Link was now in the body of the headless god, which was covered with rotten human tissues. Link didn't want to walk or swim on it at all. Where Midona had just stood, it suddenly bulged like a pimple, and then broke open. The head of a creature was revealed. Ugh. Midona retched, "I can't stand it. Let's get out of here." From where Midona had just stood, a giant nematode emerged from the earth. It was completely black and smooth, 10 times bigger than the largest python on earth. Link already had goosebumps. Link nodded and quickly flew along the head. The giant black nematode had no eyes, no ears, only a primitive and terrifying mouthpart. But somehow, it seemed to be able to see Link running away quickly, so it screamed and made an unpleasant sound that Link had never heard before, twisting quickly like a snake. Link rarely had any fighting spirit. After all, this was a parasite inside the headless corpse of the god. Link didn't want to touch him at all, let alone fight with this ugly life. So, this brave man who didn't tremble in the face of the strongest demon king Ganon in history. Flee. As soon as Link escaped, as an outsider, he exuded the rare smell of fresh flesh, which suddenly activated the inner cavity of the god, which seemed very quiet at first. Whoa, wow 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 wow. Midona was shocked, and she buried her head in Link's hair like yeah, not daring to look up. Under Link, the dense yellow-green small pools of water exploded one after another, and a dense pile of white worms raised their ugly heads, trying to devour Link. Link was so frightened that his scalp exploded and the hair on his body stood up. After coming to the Marvel world, Link has never been so flustered. The last time he was so flustered was when Zelda suggested that Link wear women's clothes. What a hideous scene it was. On the ground, it was like a honeycomb, with dense worms emerging and trying to bite Link. Link suddenly felt like he was going to collapse. He would rather fight with 100 Thanos than face these disgusting maggots. Link flew high up quickly. Suddenly, he saw a large number of giant mites flying over from a distance. After the death of the gods, the organs in the inner cavity shrank and squeezed together. So there was a lot of space left, so that some creatures like mites learned to fly and grew wings. Link spun around and dodged desperately. Fight? That's impossible. Link would rather wear women's clothes than fight with these parasites. Not to mention anything else, just the job of being blown up by bugs made Link have no desire to fight at all. Fangire lay on Link's back and screamed in fear. There were squeaking sounds of bugs everywhere that dragons couldn't stand, and Fangire was scared. Fangire opened his mouth and planned to spit fire to attack these annoying bugs. Link was stunned and said hurriedly, "No, Fangire." This was the body of a god who had been dead for thousands of years. The inside was a square circle. Inside the corrupt body, a large amount of foul-smelling gas accumulated. These are all very easy to burn. That's it for today. I will adjust my work and rest schedule tomorrow, and will not stay up late. I will increase the update volume again. Thank you for the tip from Lily Shipping. Thank you for the tip from Minecrafter. Thank you for the tip from Tuiopeo Luishan. Thank you for the tip from Lavua Tiaudo. Thank you for the tip from Kayan Xiaoshengshu. Thank you for the tip from Acheo. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 220, The Terror in the Wormhole. The small flame of the tooth could only ignite the hair of Star-Lord D'Antoni, and could not even hurt Pepper. However, in this special environment, a terrible chain reaction would occur. Boom 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 boom. Link only saw the strong light coming from behind, and then his tail felt the burning heat, and without looking back, he immediately increased his speed, and flew forward desperately. And just behind Link, less than 5 meters away, a large area of fire, like a flood, ignited all the space, and told to flood in the direction of Link. Midona shouted, "Hurry up, Link, come on." Her ears were full of the crackling sounds of the huge parasites in the body cavity of the headless god's corpse being ignited by fire. Crackling, disgusting. Midona shouted, "I hate it here." Link was helpless. Me too. He had already increased his speed to the extreme. But the explosion of fire behind him had the momentum of an avalanche, pressing forward, gradually approaching Link's tail. Fang looked behind him, quickly climbed onto Link's head, pointed at his tail, and babbled. Link was helpless. "I know, the fire is about to burn my tail." Suddenly Link hurriedly stopped, and Midona exclaimed, "Why don't you run?" Link said, "I'm tired." Midona covered her eyes. "Do you want to commit suicide? I'm still a beautiful girl. I still have a good time. I want to fall in love. I can't die like this." Link turned around calmly, looked at the flames rushing towards him, and said, "I don't want to spend too much energy on flying. Let this explosion shockwave help me fly. Link summoned the Hylia shield and controlled it with the magnetic grabber, using it as an arm. The flames came all over, and in an instant, Link and the other two were submerged. At this time, tap, the strong wind from the explosion blew Link's hair straight, and Fang just grabbed Link's two ears for fear of being blown away. The flames had already engulfed Link, but he remained unmoved. Just when the strongest wave of impact came, Link saw the opportunity and put his shield on his feet. The shock wave hit the Hylia shield. Link was immediately thrown out, and then his wings flapped, and Link's speed increased further. The entire inner cavity was activated because of this explosion. At this moment, the headless corpse of the god has become a breeding tank for giant parasites, and the flesh is densely penetrated by these ugly corpse-eating lives. As the flames grew, the parasites were activated, and a large number of them began to crawl out of the flesh. Then Link and his companions saw a horrifying scene. The sky was covered with a poisonous green atmosphere, and there were some buzzing winged mites hidden in it. Under the body, there was a funeral green river of thick water, as well as a large number of terrible insect holes and eggs. A large number of frightened worms broke out of the body and twisted around each other. Crawl desperately with your back to the fire. What kind of scene is this? Dense, fleshy worms gathered into a giant river on the ground and fled in panic. Midona accidentally took a look and immediately felt a numbness in her head and fainted. Link has experienced countless big scenes. He thought that there was nothing in the world that was worthy of his fear. Until he came here. Link looked at the fire behind him and said, "Burn it, burn it, burn it clean." Boom. With the help of the impact of the explosion again, Link accelerated further. At this time, the temperature of this cavity was at least 100 degrees. The worm river below boiled directly, and the worms twisted wildly. Link heard Zelda talk about the Cthulhu mythology. The whispers of those alien ancient gods are enough to drive people crazy and die. But Link believes that the whispers of the ancient gods still cannot shake his heart. But what happened at this moment under the body? The group of huddled together, swelling and exploding, juices exploding, sharp wailing and bursting sounds gathered together. But it made Link very sick, and he was afraid that he would not be able to eat for 2 days. Soon, Link reached the end of the cavity. Due to the high temperature, Link was afraid of hurting Midona and Fangaea, so he immediately covered himself with a layer of frost. Combined with the turbid and hot air around him, a thick mist formed around his body. The mist directly hit the end of the cavity. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. Link released the power of thunder, and the mist surrounding his body also showed fluctuating violent lightning. Link bit the Master Sword. He really didn't want to open his mouth, tilted his head, and suddenly cut the cavity membrane. With the power of thunder, he tore a gap in this rotten body. Boom. After flying for a full 30 seconds, Link finally pierced through the rotten flesh membrane and flew out. The unknown organ behind him exploded, and flames burst out from the gap, and then were eroded by the flames in the body. Link breathed a sigh of relief and looked around. The air here is a little fresher. Link saw outer space through the yellow-green atmosphere. He seemed to have come to another part of the chest cavity of the headless corpse of the ancient god. This part, due to the cracks on the surface of the body, the internal space was in contact with the outside world. So the inside was dry, like a giant Gobi desert. There was no vitality at all. Of course, for Link, the vibrant inner cavity like the one he just experienced, was better off not having it. Midona shouted, "Ah! Fresh air, ahem." Link said, "It's not fresh enough." Lightning was released from the surface of the body to further purify the surrounding air. Because the volume of the headless corpse of the god was large enough, it was able to produce an atmosphere. In the inner cavity, there was some air that Link and Midona could breathe comfortably. Of course, with Link's current physique, he could survive in a vacuum environment. At most he would be more tired than usual. Midona looked at the dry scene under her feet and cheered. "I like it here. It's dead silent. There's not a single bug." Link turned his head and Wolf looked at the heroic explosion behind him, which was enough to ignite the area of a small country. Even if Link and Thor were combined, they couldn't create a killing range of this scale. But it was Fang that did it. Link raised his eyes and looked at Fang, only to see Fang crawling listlessly on Link's head. It seemed that she was also scared. Midona recovered some of her spirit and said, well, the other particles in my body are moving now. We are not far from the heart of the gods. The surroundings were filled with a strong breath of Ganon's curse, but this breath made Link feel excited. No matter what, Ganon is always more intimate than a wormhole. Link thought with a bit of evil taste, I really should find some photos and show them to the two princesses. Chapter 221 Strong support coming. Link fell to the ground. The flesh here, due to being exposed to the outside world for many years, had decomposed and dried up, forming a small desert. Midona said strangely, you see the wind and sand all over the sky, it's actually corpse powder. Yaya was even more scared after hearing this, and covered his mouth and nose with his little paws. Link said, what are you thinking about? It makes the meat and vegetables we usually eat look like corpses. Link ran forward. After transforming into a wolf, Link's running speed increased a lot. He quickly passed through the corpses of the headless gods, and ran in this lonely death desert. Link was not willing to stop for a moment. There were still a large number of residents living in the ignorant place. With such a short time, they were not allowed to evacuate all. Once the corpse of the headless god approached, they would face a catastrophe. As they got closer to the heart, the trembling sound from the ground became more and more powerful. Boom. Boom. The whole world was shaking. Soon, they were blocked by a white wall. Link observed the thickness of the white wall, which seemed to be the diaphragm of the headless god. Midona patted Link on the back and said, I feel that there is a strong breath of Ganon's curse on that side. You must be careful. Fangire also touched Link's head and bit Link's furry ears with his teeth for fun. Get ready, Link said to Midona and Fangire in a deep voice. On Earth, because Link and Tony were missing, Rogers, Banner and others gathered together to discuss. Zelda and the others are still waiting in London. Link and Tony may be in danger. No. Suddenly, the roof of the house they were on exploded. A bearded man wearing a red cloak and armor fell to the ground with a hammer. Thor. Everyone exclaimed and surrounded them. But Thor had no intention of reuniting with them, and his face was very serious. He said to everyone, I found Link and Tony. Roger said, in that case, then let's go and save them. Thor said, by your standards, they are thousands of light years away. Rogers was speechless. Hawkeye crossed his arms. That's a long way. Thor looked at Banner. It doesn't matter how far it is. But, Heimdall, I saw something bad. Thor told the other Avengers what Link was going to face. The scene immediately became quiet. Others are useless at the moment. Banner, come with me to help Link. Banner sat up, held Thor's hand, and said with a smile, great, this is a rare space adventure, and we will definitely find many research reports. Rogers thought of Pepper and asked, take Zelda and the others with you. Thor shook his head seriously, no, just go with me, Banner. The enemy this time is too tricky and dangerous. Banner, you have to be prepared to sacrifice yourself. Recalling Zelda's crying voice when he called her, Banner smiled without thinking. I'm not ready to sacrifice myself, but I'm ready to let others sacrifice themselves. Thor knew that time was running out, so he immediately grabbed Banner, raised his hammer high, and disappeared from the spot, and a strong light suddenly gathered. Natasha was also very worried about Link, and she was frowning all the time. Hawkeye patted her shoulder, and said with a smile, what are you afraid of? The three strongest Avengers are here. How can we lose with such a luxurious loop? Natasha also recovered her mood. No matter what, it was good news that Link was alive. She put down a big stone in her heart and teased Hawkeye. That's right. Link is so strong, equivalent to an enhanced version of Hawkeye and an enhanced version of the Captain. Why would I worry about his safety? Hawkeye snorted coldly, picked up the bow and arrow, and ran outside to practice archery. Hawkeye was a little embarrassed after being defeated by Link twice. He had been practicing archery secretly behind Link's back, hoping to get back at him one day. Hawkeye loosened his fingers and shot an arrow into the bullseye of the target. He said in his heart, Link, you must come back alive. You still owe me a victory. Rogers took the newspaper on the table, which showed a close-up of Tony's high-spirited face. He stared at Tony's face, wondering what he was thinking. Thor and Banner came to the teleportation room of Asgard in an instant. This was Banner's first time in Asgard. Seeing this magnificent scene, he couldn't help but admire it. Heimdall looked at Banner and said, I know you. the most powerful Avenger on Earth. Banner looked at the tall Heimdall and thanked him. Thor said to Banner, "Are you ready?" Banner was stunned and said, "Is it the unreasonable super light speed travel just now?" Heimdall said, "That place is too far away, beyond the scope of the 9 realms. I can't help you teleport there." At this time, Sif and Hagen came on the bridge, pulling a tied person and walked over. Banner looked at the man in green leather clothes, oily hair and thin face, cunning eyes and mouth corners, and wondered, "Loki?" Thor said, "Loki said he knows a shortcut to the land of ignorance, and we need him to be our guide. He knows a lot of strange things. Last time he actually tickled me with a donkey's tail. I never knew I was afraid of a donkey's tail, but Loki knew it. Isn't it strange?" Banner didn't know how to respond for a while. Thor looked at Loki coldly, "For your last sneaking away, and the last time you secretly announced my death, and the last time." Loki raised his eyebrows and smiled glibly. "Okay, brother, I know you are very tolerant. Okay, untie me, I will take you to rescue Link. By the way, I have a good relationship with Ronan the Accuser." Thor said, "Let's go. If you play tricks again this time, I will hang you on the tree and whip you." Since Link had dealt with Loki once, and it was very effective, Thor secretly wrote this method in a small notebook. Loki's face changed. In his heart, he still had the psychological shadow of being ravaged by Link. This shadow may take 1,000 years to heal. Ban looked at Loki warily. Loki smiled. "Well, your expression is fierce, but it can be more fierce. Why don't you turn into Hulk to celebrate?" Heimdall and others immediately became a little wary. They all knew how powerful Hulk was. But Banner was unmoved and said, "I'll turn into the Hulk and hang you up and beat you." Thor smiled and said, "Let's go. Time waits for no one. Link needs us." Chapter 222 My beloved man turned into a dog. Third update. Link, I'm here to play with you. Link. Mipha's strength was almost restored, so she ran out to play with Link. Let's not talk about why a cute little girl with blue skin appeared next to Link. Link in front of him. How did he turn into a wolf? Link said helplessly, "Yes, it's me. I may have to keep the wolf posture for a while." Mipha came over curiously. Yeah, looked up at Mipha, and then continued to doze off on Link. Midona, on the other hand, looked at Mipha with interest, and suddenly covered her chest cutely, knocked on Link's head and said sadly, "You are actually out there, looking for another woman." Mipha flew down, and her 2 red little hands rubbed Link's face, which was furry and soft and very comfortable. For a moment, the corners of her eyes curved, and she whispered, "Wow. So cute. I want a hug." Woo wow. Mipha hugged Link in her arms, and rubbed Link's ears, very happy. Seeing that Mipha ignored her pretense, Midona became a little dissatisfied. She crawled over along Link's back, put her hands on her hips and interrogated, "Little fish girl, what is your relationship with Link? How can you hold my beloved pet like this?" Link shouted dissatisfiedly, "What are you doing? Oh, Mipha, I forgot to introduce you. This is Midona, the princess from the Kingdom of Shadows. Midona, this is Mipha, the princess from the Kingdom of Zora." Mipha was already accustomed to the strange people around Link, so she chuckled and greeted Midona. "Hello." Midona's face was dumbfounded, staring at Link. "There are so many princesses around you. This little dragon, could it be a princess of the Kingdom of Dragons too?" Huh. Hearing others talking about herself, Yea raised her head vigilantly, turned to look at Midona, and grinned at her with her milk teeth that had no deterrence. Midona looked at Link lying in Mipha's arms, and said with a sly smile, "You don't really think of yourself as a big dog, do you? Do you need to be caressed by others to be happy?" Mipha looked at Midona with a little dissatisfaction. Zelda would not dare to, so discord so blatantly. Link was also a little embarrassed. He was a little too proud of Mipha's reappearance. He quickly broke free from Mipha's arms and asked, "How are you?" Mipha smiled and said, "I've recovered and can help you." Ever since Link couldn't call Mipha out, Link's heart was full of worries. He was afraid that Mipha would use up all her soul power to save him and completely die. He didn't say any nonsense like, "Don't heal me anymore," because he knew Mipha. When he was in danger, Mipha would definitely save Link at all costs. Mipha casually changed the subject and asked with a smile, "Where is this place?" Link said, "This is the interior of a supergiant corpse. Ganon is controlling this corpse. trying to merge the corpse and the head and resurrect into a monster that can destroy the universe. Mipha murmured. Ganon? Mipha smiled. Then you have to work hard, come on. Then her body faded and disappeared into the air. The blue flame on Link's body also suddenly went out. After Mipha flew away, Yair took over Link's head again and was carefully counting the number of white hairs on Link's head. After seeing Mipha safe with his own eyes, Link breathed a sigh of relief, but then thought again. Mipha is in the form of a soul. She didn't come back to life at all. The four heroes, even after death, spared no effort to help him and Zelda. Carrying these four souls, Link felt that his shoulders were very heavy. Midona flew over, rubbed Link's cheeks with her two small hands, and smiled. It's really comfortable. That red-skinned fish girl must love you very much. As if she noticed Link's depression, Midona smiled. Why are you daydreaming? Are you waiting for the world to end? If the people in this world knew that the reason why Ganon was able to destroy the world was that the hero missed the time due to daydreaming, they would definitely be angry to death. Link shook his head, adjusted his mentality, and restored himself to the best state. The two wolf eyes on the Shadow Wolf regained their sharpness. Let's go. He jumped up suddenly, and his hind legs kicked out two big holes on the ground. Link jumped in the air, and the thunder power of his body burst out. Link bit the Master Sword with his teeth, and a fierce sword energy was suddenly released, rushing towards this hard diaphragm. Bang! The sword energy of the carrier Zabo cut through the diaphragm at once. Link jumped in. Gulp, 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 gulp. Different from the previous inner cavity, Link came to a wider space. If the headless body of the god is regarded as a human body, then Link's position is in the human body space, where the two lungs and the heart are stored. As soon as he entered this space, the atmosphere suddenly became oppressive. The strong smell of Ganon exceeded the sum of the Ganon power encountered in the Marvel world before. A large space, most of which was covered with a thick layer of black Ganon pollution. And above Link's head, there was a heart covered with Ganon pollution, beating slightly, even if it was slightly. For Link, with the size of the god, it was equivalent to a severe earthquake. Boom. 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 Midona whispered, the Ganon is in this area, cheer up. Link took 2 steps forward cautiously, and suddenly saw that several groups of Ganon pollution exploded, revealing the hidden things inside. Several huge ancient parts. Link subconsciously took back these ancient components. However, before he walked over, these ancient components suddenly covered the surface with a layer of red light. Several ancient parts collided with each other, and the red light suddenly appeared, turning into a mechanical puppet made of black and blue metal. The sluggish and stiff mechanical legs swung randomly like a spider, and there was a shining eyeball on the body, rotating sluggishly. This was exactly the humanoid guardian that Link often met in the temple. Snap. The humanoid guardian stretched out his weapons, a guardian shield and a short knife. Link hadn't seen such a thing for a long time. But at this moment, he had no intention of fighting, so he flew into the sky and headed for the heart of the god. Swoosh. A laser shot out quickly. Link dodged and avoided it. Then, the humanoid guardian prepared a second laser attack. Midona said, let's get rid of him before we leave. Link immediately summoned the shield and held it with the magnetic gripper. Aim at the humanoid guardian. Chapter 223 Humanoid Cannon. 4th update. The humanoid guardian is a mechanical puppet that surrounds the temple. It has strong combat capabilities. When Link explored the various temples in Hyrule, he encountered many of these humanoid guardians. This humanoid guardian moves stiffly, but is very fast. It can use a variety of weapons. Like Link, it is proficient in cold weapons. Not only that, it can also launch lasers and many other attack methods. Link has suffered a lot from this mechanical puppet. The humanoid guardian shot a laser, making the dim room suddenly bright. A straight red and white light shot at Link, and Link's shield hit back, and the light was deflected and reflected back to the humanoid guardian. Link has dealt with at least thousands of humanoid guardians, so his actions are very methodical. This humanoid guardian is obviously more powerful than those humanoid guardians in Hyrule. At least the speed of light condensation and its own aiming speed are 10 times the original. When the light hit the humanoid guardian's eyes, Link rushed over, first using the time stop skill to control it, then biting the dragon scale sword, and dancing. Boom boom boom. Because Link turned into a wolf, his movements were a little awkward. but he had extremely high combat experience and quickly adapted to this inconvenience. When Link was in trouble, he could fight ferocious monsters with branches and pot lids. He was good at dealing with problems under limited conditions. Midona muttered at this time, "Aren't you afraid that your teeth will fall off?" Link blew up the humanoid guardian in no time, bit the equipment on the ground, threw it to Midona and said, "I have broken countless swords and countless bones, but my teeth have never been damaged." Ye heard them talking about teeth, and he opened his mouth curiously, put his little paw in his mouth, and touched his teeth. Midona smiled and said, yeah, you can't eat candy, or your teeth will be damaged. Huh. Link flew up into the sky, and suddenly, dozens of red lights on the wall lit up, emitting red rays, and fixed behind Link. Midona screamed, "Link! Many guardians are aiming at you." Link said, yeah, you can't put your hands in your mouth to eat. It's unhygienic. It's time, and you still care whether Ya eats his hands or not. You are being targeted by many guardians. Link smiled, "I know." He scanned the area and found many holes on the wall. The cannon pollution inside suddenly exploded, revealing the guardians inside. This kind of guardian has no legs, so it can only aim on the spot. There were dense rays of light on Link's body, and at least 50 red reserve rays were aimed at him. Midona was a little worried, and used the shadow arm in the thick iron crown to grab the blue dagger dropped by the guardian to defend herself. At this time, Link suddenly stopped in the air and did not move. Cluster. A large amount of light shot out. Link shouted, and Arkle on his body burst out. His huge body was comparable to the Hulk. His body was earthy yellow, and there were rock patterns on his back. His heroic aura reminded people of the passionate volcano. Darkle shouted with Link, wielding the rock-crushing sword, and danced in a whirl. A hexagonal blue shield burst out from Link's body and spread to the surroundings. Darkle, the hero of the Ganon tribe, launched a full shield counter. In an instant, red light from all directions converged on Link. But in the next moment, the light returned to the emitter, as if time was going backwards. Boom boom boom. The guardians on the wall who were focusing on firewood detonated one after another, and the fire was dotted. The dark space around suddenly became bright. Link accelerated his flight, and arrived on the giant heart in an instant. Because the place was covered with rich cannon pollution, Link could not find a place to land, but just floated in the sky. He looked at the surface of the heart, which was rising and falling. If it was an ordinary person, not to mention the burns from the Ganon pollution, just standing on the surface of the heart would be bounced and fell, and he would be killed. Link turned for a long time, and found the most vulnerable part of the heart. Then he held the exorcist sword in his hand, and slashed out with a sword energy, trying to shatter the heart. But at this moment, a strange low voice came from behind him. "Are you going to fight me in this posture?" Midona whispered, "It's him. Ganon." Link turned around, and saw a group of black and red ether particles, floating and condensing together without wind. Black light suddenly appeared, and suddenly changed into a tall man with red hair and a sinister face, but with a strange smile. The armor he wore was somewhat similar to that of the Washan princess, but for some reason, it had many wounds. "Humanoid Ganon?" Link growled, his hair standing up, concentrating. "I thought you were resurrected, but I didn't expect that you only managed to maintain your human form because of the other particles. The real Ganon is probably still sleeping," Midona said. She certainly wasn't just watching the battle. The shadow arm in the rough iron crown grabbed the guardian dagger. She and Link had the same mind, and when she was on Link's back, she could even use Link's power. The shadow arm was actually equivalent to Link's third hand. Ganon smiled. "Midona, the princess of the kingdom of shadows." Ganon took out his great sword and slowly walked in the air. Link's heart tightened, and he howled like a wolf and flew over. This Ganon was just a human form, barely condensed into a human body with the help of the power of the Royalty Gem. This was Ganon's appearance, before he turned into a demon. The real Demon King Ganon has gotten rid of his human form. Whether it is his body or his inner mind, he is no different from an evil ghost. Despite this, since he has changed into Ganon's appearance, the strength of this enemy cannot be weak. He is even stronger than the previous Ganon Disaster Giant. Ganon smiled and swung his sword. Link bit the dragon scale sword to fight against it, and then his body shook violently. "Watch me." At this time, Midona suddenly held the dagger in her hand and stabbed it into Ganon's neck, and the sword energy on the dagger gushed out. Carrying the power from Link, it rushed towards Ganon's body. Zeng. A strong black light suddenly released from Ganon's body, which submerged Link in an instant. Link hurriedly used his shield to block it, and the surface of the Hylia shield was eroded by the power of Ganon's curse. Two completely different forces entangled with each other. Bang! Link flew out, panting slightly. The first confrontation, a head-on collision. Two hearts fell in the upper left corner of Link's vision. Ganon whispered, "You have become weaker." Chapter 224 Thor and Loki's Sweet Journey. Just now, Link suffered a loss in his first confrontation with the humanoid Ganon. The great sword in Ganon's hand contained the power of the Reality Stone. When the two swords collided, it suddenly exploded, pulling the other particles in Link's body, causing a stress reaction, so that his own power could not be fully exploded. Link was secretly careful. His understanding of the power of the Reality Stone was far less than that of Ganon. So it was the other particles in Link's body that were mobilized, not immobilizing the other particles in Ganon's body. Every attack or defense would be restrained by the inner power of the Reality Stone. At this moment, Link was equivalent to someone pressing a needle on his chest. Frequent actions intensified the movement of the needle in the body. With such a hidden danger, Link could never use his full strength against Ganon. Midona also found something wrong. She smiled and patted Link's head, saying, "Something in your body is not stable. It's okay, I'll help you control it." At this moment, a large part of the other particles is in Ganon's body, and together with Malekith's demonic flesh and blood, it constitutes the body of a humanoid Ganon. Another small part is in Link's body, which is the inducement for him to transform into the form of Shadow Wolf. As for the last very small part, it is in Midona's hand. The dark red light in Midona's hand surged and drilled into Link's body. Link immediately felt a gentle force entering deep into his body. The emergence of this gentle force soothed the restless power of the reality gem in his body. Midona is the princess of the Kingdom of Shadows. As a creature of the illusory world of shadows, Midona is born with a strong control over the strange power of the reality gem, which is not even inferior to the current humanoid Ganon. Midona showed her fangs with a wicked smile, and said with a smile, "The irritable little dog in Big Dog's body has been tied up by me. But, since I have to control the other particles in your body, I can't spare my hands to help you fight. Big Dog, go and bite this bad Ganon to death." Link roared and rushed over. The Master Sword in his mouth burst out with a sharp and strong light. Although the Exorcist Sword was only activated in the initial first stage, its power was limited. But as a sword of justice that slays demons and exorcises demons, the appearance of Demon King Ganon, with the ferocious and evil power raging on his body, activated the bright nature of the Master Sword's connotation, and its power doubled. Before the man arrived, the sword energy was still surging out. Even Link's body was covered with a faint light. After all, he was facing Ganon, although it was only the weakest form, human form. But his strength, coupled with the changes brought by the other particles, the threat he posed to Link, was unprecedented since he came to this world. Ganon also dragged a big sword, and Link was the only one left in his sight. His eyes were burning with black flames, which was completely opposite to Link's white light. The humanoid Ganon's body was emitting a dark light. If it was before, just this kind of black light exposed on the surface would be enough to seriously injure Link. Clang. Thor and Banner, holding Loki hostage, boarded the Asgard spaceship, driving in the illusory space outside Asgard. Thor repeated his words for the fourth time. "I warn you, Loki, if you dare to deceive us, I will drop you on a tree and whip you for 3 days and 3 nights. Loki waved his hand and smiled helplessly. Okay, I know. I have turned over a new leaf. As a brother, you have to believe me. Give me some food. Haha. Thor sneered. Banner was a little uneasy and sat at the other end of the spaceship, far away from Loki, enjoying the fine wine of Asgard with Thor. Banner said, "How far is this place from where Link and Ganon fought?" "I checked with Heimdall, and it's 1.2 million light years." Banner looked at the wooden deck under his feet. As a scientist, he was very curious about how this quite ancient Nordic-style warship could sail in the universe without causing him to lack oxygen. Although the ship was very fast, it was 1.2 million light years. Not to mention whether it could catch up with Link and Ganon's battle. If they rushed to the land of ignorance at this speed, I'm afraid Banner would have died of old age. Loki smiled and said, there is a shortcut just ahead. We can quickly rush to the land of ignorance through the hole in that space. Banner asked seriously, is it the folds of the universe that form the overlap of several phases and the displacement of space that creates the channel equivalent to a wormhole? Huh. The two brothers of the gods looked silly. Ahem. Loki coughed. He didn't understand a word of what Banner said just now. Yes, that's it. Okay, we're here. Hold on to the boat, keep your body close to the deck, and hold your head. Otherwise, you will be caught in the turbulence of time and space. Of course, this is what I hope for. Thor hurriedly followed Banner, like a snail, clinging to the deck, and holding his head. If the police saw them in this shape, they would not be able to help but put a circle of tape around their bodies. Swish. A small sound of wind came from above. Banner looked up carefully and found that the sky suddenly changed from black to an unimaginable color. With human eyes, it is impossible to distinguish this color. Banner reluctantly classified it as gray. When his eyes were cast into this endless gray, his mind stopped thinking. Time is completely frozen in this space. Just a moment later, the scenery in the sky suddenly turned black again. But because, in that wonderful illusory gray, Banner and others did not feel time, it was as if their bodies had stopped for 300 million years. Thor whispered, alright. Then he saw Loki, who had been sitting like a good boy, and didn't lie on the deck with them. So he asked, aren't you afraid of being swept away by the time and space turbulence? Loki grinned and said, time and space turbulence? What is this? I just want to see you lying on the floor with your butt sticking out. Loki. Thor pulled out his belt. He couldn't help it. He wanted to give his brother a good beating. Enjoy the pleasure that Link experienced. Oh my god. Banner rubbed his hair and looked at the scene in front of him in surprise. Loki smiled and said, brother, before you hit me, consider the occasion first. Not to mention that there are outsiders here, but there is a huge headless corpse that is flying towards us quickly. Thanks to bookfriend 20180207182405791 for the 2000 starting coins reward. Thanks to Alicius's Sky Dragon for the 100 starting coins reward. Chapter 225 Tony is extremely angry. Iron Man was speeding through the industrial zone of the land of ignorance, with a large number of military spacecrafts of Ronan the Accuser chasing behind him. As he was far away from the Earth, Iron Man could not use Jarvis's supercomputing ability, and he had to rely on himself to deal with the enemy and control the mecha. But before Tony was a superhero, he was first a super genius, with human computing ability, and could even be on par with Jarvis. The lack of Jarvis's help did not affect his genius. He controlled Iron Man to fly in the crowded industrial collection area, dodging buildings back and forth, and under high difficulty one by one. The spacecraft behind him collided with the buildings in the industrial zone one after another, exploding into a piece of fireworks. But it seemed that Tony came to the wrong place. After the spacecraft detonated, the sparks jumped into the brown storage pool in the center, igniting a raging fire. The fire spread extremely fiercely, and soon, it enveloped the industrial zone. Tony looked at the mess of fire behind him with a little toothache, and muttered, well, a great industrial area is destroyed. As an entrepreneur, I can only express my consolation to you verbally. After all, I'm a pauper now. Although he was still talking to himself. But Tony's speed did not stop, and he rushed back to the explosion of the collection room. On the ground, a smoky Macupe man was fighting with a smoky Macupe man with red sexy tattoos. The smoky Macupe man with red tattoos was obviously no match for the smoky Macupe man. Tony looked at the accuser Ronan and began to beat Drax in all directions. So he used voice control. Play a cool background music from my music library. I'm going to fight with that smoky Macupe man. Play it loud. It's best if everyone on the planet can hear it. Tony rushed to the sky behind Ronan and shouted, hey, smoky Macupe man. Why not change your opponent? Ronan didn't react at first to realize that the smoky Macupe man was calling him, but he instinctively sensed the danger. He turned around and saw Iron Man, who was stabbing him with lasers. He dodged sideways. Who are you? Who is the smoky-faced seductive hunk? Tony sneered. You are indeed a bit dumb. Come, accept my bombardment weight. BGM. Iron Man dived down. The speaker function started immediately, but there was no passionate music Tony expected. But, Pepper, I miss you. If I can survive, when I see you again, I will definitely not be able to control my emotions and cry in your arms. Oh. Tony's face changed. Damn it. He was going to play music, but accidentally played Tony's last words recording. Tony's slightly trembling voice came out from Iron Man's high-quality speaker, deafening, but every detail of the sound was intact. Tony could clearly hear himself sobbing quietly in the recording. He was a little stupid, you know. His last words contained his embarrassing and sensational confession. Before his death, Tony didn't care about being cheesy or not. He spoke from the bottom of his heart, leaving several messages to everyone he knew. I'm not used to crying, but... Tony shouted in panic at high speed. Stop, stop. Oh my god, this is a public execution. Such shameful words were broadcast to everyone on the planet. Tony panicked, causing the Iron Man, who needed to be driven manually, to go wrong in flight. He suddenly crashed into Ronan, who grabbed him and threw him away. He smashed down a slum. Tony didn't care about that and hurriedly used his eyes to control the control panel in front of him. Please, stop the speaker for me. But Ronan threw him away just now, and it seemed that the mecha was damaged and the control components of the speaker were destroyed. Tony couldn't interrupt the recording. No. Pepper, my love, I miss you. Drax barely stood up, looked at Iron Man seriously, and slowly raised a thumb. You are a man of love and righteousness. Rocket and Star-Lord, who were dealing with Yondu and others in the distance, also heard Tony's distinctive voice resounding throughout the universe. What the hell? Star-Lord shouted. What is Tony doing? Rocket shouted. What the hell is Pepper? What is Pepper again? Is it edible? Tony didn't care about the battle and hurriedly adjusted his external speaker function. He had never been so panicked before. The sound of the external speaker was deafening, and he couldn't even hear himself talking. Ronan stepped forward and punched Iron Man, who had just stood up, and sent him flying. Tony shouted, "You're taking advantage of someone's misfortune? Don't make me angry, or I'll take out your junior high school diary and read it to everyone in the universe." Ronan shouted, "Let me see. What's in your armor?" Drax shouted at this time and rushed over. "You are not allowed to kill such a loyal man." Ronan had just pressed on Iron Man, intending to punch him hard in the neck at his weak spot. But Drax, holding the short knife snatched from the Shy's helmet, stabbed him. Ronan turned around and grabbed him. "Zelda, in fact, in my heart, I have already regarded you as my most important sister." At this moment, several Ronan spaceships fired artillery fire towards this side. There was a large explosion. Ronan pushed Drax away. Turning around, he saw that Iron Man aimed his hands at the Ronan spaceship and released a beam. Ronan shouted, "You're too noisy." He grabbed Tony's wrists and used his strength to force Tony's palms to face him, forcing him to be unable to launch a laser. "Link, before I died, I actually relied on you so much. It's hard to imagine. You have always been my hero." Tony was a little shocked to see that Iron Man's strength was not as strong as Ronan's physical strength. His own overflowing confession of love was in his ears, which gave him a headache. Why do people act so hypocritically before they die? Exclamation mark. Tony sneered and said, "Enjoy the roar of the sound waves." Iron Man leaned forward and put his side face against Ronan's ear as if kissing Ronan. Iron Man's side face is exactly where the components of his loudspeaker are. "I love this world. I love all of you. I'm lonely." Tony's voice was shouting dryly in the external speaker, and Tony himself wanted to cry and wanted to die in embarrassment. You know, Iron Man's external speaker is at its maximum at this moment. Everyone in the entire ignorant existence can hear it clearly, and the part of the loudspeaker is pressed hard against Ronan's ear. At this moment, Ronan's left ear was filled with Tony's passionate shouts. Boom. Ronan heard a bang and his head was buzzing. Tony's last words made him deaf in his left ear. Tony yelled, "Get out of here." Thanks to Minecrafter for the 500 starting coins. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.